A night of silence. When the next day comes, the entire Beehive Island is still so dull, without any cheerful atmosphere. Because all the strong men on Beehive Island at this time are either recuperating from their injuries or strengthening their training. I hope I can become stronger in a short time. And during this time, it would be difficult for them to get out of the shadow they suffered in the Valley of Gods. That was a huge damage to their souls, and they could only wait for time to eliminate it all. Whether it's Whitebeard Newgate, Golden Lion Shaki, or Charlotte Linlin, they all perform similarly. Maybe in the future they will be the most indomitable pirates, the Four Emperors, the legendary pirates. But even so, they are still trapped in the shadow of self-doubt. At this moment, above the sea, the news of the Valley of Gods is being wildly publicized. Quite a few pirates already know this information. It's just that at this time, they don't know whether this information is true or false. They were all speculating whether the 5 elders were really killed by that Yulo. I don't quite believe that Rox, a strong player who transcended an era, has fallen like this. Everyone is confronting and doubting. Only the person involved understands how cruel this thing is. Among them, the leader of the Revolutionary Army, Long, the aloof Redfield, and the Lord of the Underworld, Brooke, who were watching at the scene, understood this matter best. But for various reasons, they did not directly show up to tell these things and admit the authenticity of these things. That's why a lot of rumors spread across the sea, and everyone is waiting for the final true result to appear. Just think that all the powerful people thought that the world government had experienced such great turmoil. The next period of time will definitely seem quite peaceful. At least we have to hide our capabilities and bide our time and take some time to recuperate. But who knows, at this moment, the world government unexpectedly announced a piece of news that shocked the world. 2 days later, the 5 elders will appear in person. In Marie Joy's, the holy land of the celestial dragons, the pirate overlord Rox was publicly executed. When everyone heard the news, the whole world became a little uproar. Because before that, most ordinary people thought Rox was dead. The 5 elders, the most powerful people, have also fallen. No one knew what was going on. Why is there such a huge difference between the information we received before and the information the world government is distributing now? The people who eat melons are a little at a loss. They are all waiting for the live broadcast on the day of the execution. In their view, as long as Rox and 5 elders appear, all rumors will be self-evident. We'll know whether the previous incident of Yulo killing the 5 elders is true. However, many people still scolded Yulo and thought he was a complete liar. The forces responsible for spreading this news were also as dark as a pot. Because they were scolded together, it was as if they had colluded to deceive the whole world. But is this really the case? Of course not. The heads of the major forces, as well as the top experts, all noticed something was wrong. Especially the revolutionary dragons who have personally experienced it, Redfield, the aloof man, and Brooke, the lord of the underworld. They all have observation hockey, which allows them to observe the vital signs of strong people. They clearly witnessed Yulo killing all the 5 elders. 5 elders must be truly dead. In this case, it is impossible for the opponent to resurrect, and it is absolutely impossible to escape from death. So they probably already know that. This incident should be a counterattack by the world government. But even so, they couldn't come out to clarify this matter, because it was not something they could clarify at all. If there are really witnesses who dare to come forward to clarify this matter and confront the world government on the spot. Not to mention whether the melon eaters will believe them, or whether they will believe marine and world government. But at this juncture, the world government will not let go of guys like them who dare to confront each other in public. It's not worth it for them who are not mortal enemies of the world government. Even the extremely arrogant, aloof Redfield would not do such a thing. Although they are pirates, they are just pirates, not stupid idiots. Similarly, there is no news from Monkey D. Dragon. They all know that if the world government does this, it will definitely take big action. Everyone was watching silently, planning to see what the world government was going to do. In a certain sea area, Roger pirates. On the pirate ship, Roger, Rayleigh, Bullet and others were sitting around on the deck. They are discussing this matter. Bullet said without thinking. I think the reason why the world government does this is most likely to save its own prestige and face. After all, in the ocean right now, the news that Yulo killed the 5 elders is at the forefront, which directly caused the world government to almost lose its face and prestige. After hearing Bullet's words, Rayleigh also nodded slightly and said, but no matter what the world government is going to do, the people they are targeting should only be Yulo and Rox pirate. It doesn't have much to do with us, and it's also beneficial to us. There's no need to worry about anything. Roger, the leader, nodded. Yes, but according to Yulo's character, I'm afraid he won't be indifferent. He will definitely make some moves by then, and we should be more prepared. After hearing his words, a smile appeared on Rayleigh's lips. Roger, I think if Yulo really wants to do something, it won't be harmful to us. At this point, Rayleigh paused and then continued. Now the world government and the Rocks Pirate have suffered huge losses. In this situation, the best response is to hide your strength and bide your time, recover from your injuries and gain strength before doing other things. If at this time, we really confront each other again because of this matter. It couldn't be better. On Beehive Island, all the Rocks Pirate crew members expressed that they were extremely angry. What are the world governments doing? They are completely humiliating us, naked humiliation. Whitebeard Newgate clenched his fists, and translucent shock power emanated from his body. I wish I could go directly to the holy land of world government and shake all those corpse-like guys into powder. The golden lion Shaki on the side also had the same look, with a dangerous light in his eyes. The world government is not just humiliating us, it is humiliating even the dead Captain Rocks. Everyone knows that Captain Rocks has been brutally murdered, but now he is being executed in public. That's right. We can't bear this kind of humiliation. We must kill them and let them try our power. Charlotte Linlin also clenched her fists, and the light in her eyes flickered unusually. Like them, there are Ochaku, Silver Axe, John and other officers on the Rocks pirate ship. They were all seriously injured, but they all gathered together regardless of their injuries. Their expressions were extremely ugly, and their exchanges were filled with resentment towards the world government and pity for Rocks. Let's go to the Holy Land. Even if we risk our lives, we will die with them. I can't stand this humiliation. Silver Axe clenched his axe tightly, the anger in his eyes was unusually horrifying. Yes, let's kill him. Knock them to death and let the whole world know the shamelessness and despicability of world government. Ochaku and John both responded. Then after they finished shouting, there was a hint of helplessness in their eyes. The reason is simple. Everyone is seriously injured now. In this case, if Marie Joyce is killed, there is a high probability that world government and Marine will directly make dumplings. This is unacceptable to them, so everyone now feels quite powerless. They looked at each other, not knowing what to do next. At this moment, the door to the room was pushed open, and Yulo walked in front of them with murderous intent. At this time, Yulo's eyes were full of murderous intent, which made everyone present feel a little shocked. But they also knew that the murderous intent in Yulo's eyes was not directed at them, otherwise, it would definitely be dozens of times more vicious. On the way here, I got news that the world government was going to publicly execute Rocks. This information was unacceptable to him, and he had already made the decision to commit suicide in person at the Holy Land. Anyway, now he has recovered from all his injuries and his strength has been qualitatively improved. When the time comes, he will not be afraid of any strong man. Even if the legendary Lord I Am appears, he can fight with him. Everyone looked at Yulo, and Yulo spoke directly without any hesitation. I have decided that when the time comes, I will go directly to the Holy Land of Celestial Dragons. Whether this information is true or false, whether they resurrected Rocks or made a fake, I will not make it easy for them. Upon hearing this, everyone present was extremely surprised. I saw Whitebeard speak directly. Yulo, I know you are very angry and angry. Everyone is the same. But you can't go alone at this time, it's still too risky. That's right, Yulo, everyone misses Captain Rocks the same way, and no world government is allowed to insult Captain Rocks. It's better to wait until we are healed and kill them together. Then we can take revenge and make them pay the price. Ochaku, John and others on the side also spoke to persuade. However, after hearing everyone's words, Yulo's eyes gradually became calm, but he slowly shook his head. No, we can't wait any longer. World government is unfathomable, far more than the strength they show on the surface. Having said this, Yulo paused for a moment before speaking. If I really take you there, even if your injuries are completely healed, you will probably be a drag on me. After the words fell, Whitebeard Newgate and others felt extremely ashamed. If anyone else had said this, they would have gone up and surrounded and killed them long ago. But the person who said this was Yulo. They had all seen Yulo's strength before, so they knew that what Yulo said was true. But this made them extremely anxious, and they secretly made up their minds to become stronger as quickly as possible. Try to catch up with Yulo and help them together. At this time, Kaido on the side suddenly spoke. Kadri Yulo, Do you really have the confidence to defeat the powerful men of world government on your own? Hearing this, everyone's eyes turned to Yulo, and they all wanted to know whether Yulo was really confident. However, after hearing the other party's words, a sneer appeared on the corner of Yulo's mouth and he said coldly, "Don't worry, my strength has been qualitatively improved after the last battle. With strong men like the 5 elders, if there are 13 more, it won't be any problem to kill them all without leaving anyone behind." When he said this, Yulo's body suddenly burst out with shocking momentum. This terrifying momentum made everyone's pupils slightly sore. They were all extremely shocked and speechless. "I didn't expect your strength to have risen to this level. What a pervert." That's right, with such strength, you really don't need to be afraid of those strong men from the world government. All you have to do is kill them all. Whitebeard Newgate and Golden Lion Shaki spoke slowly. At this time, no one said any more words to dissuade. Because they all felt that Yulo's strength had reached an incredible level. This was a level that completely surpassed theirs. With all the people present, there probably wouldn't be enough for Yulo to kill by himself. So they will not dissuade Yulo from doing anything at this time. Because they know that Yulo has such strength, as long as Yulo himself does not want to die. Then, no matter how powerful he is, no matter how many powerful men surround him, it is impossible to kill him. They have this confidence, so they feel comfortable letting Yulo face the world government's trap alone. That's right, they already knew that this was actually a big trap, and it could be said that it was an obvious plan. But even so, Yulo was not afraid at all, he just wanted to go. He just wants to step into the opponent's trap and let everyone in world government and marine know his strength. As Yulo showed further strength, Newgate, Shaki and others were amazed and relieved. Although the world government is strong, in the Battle of the Valley of the Gods, the 5 elders died tragically, Admiral Herman died tragically, and Kong and others were seriously injured. It is absolutely impossible to recover in just a few days. Monsters like Yulo not only fully recovered, but also became even stronger. The only one on the sea. So in their opinion, Yulo has a great chance of winning this trip. The hidden powerhouses within the world government are, at best, comparable to those in the Valley of Gods battle. After all, it is extremely difficult to cultivate strong people at the admiral level. No matter how strong the world government is, there is always a limit. As the most powerful people, the 5 elders are undoubtedly the top combat force in the world government, otherwise they would not stand at the top of power. It can be seen from this that those powerful people with hidden backgrounds are not as strong as the 5 elders, and there are not many in number. Seeing Newgate, Kaido, Shaki and others nodded and stopped trying to persuade him, and Yulo didn't talk nonsense. "Before I leave, I'll give you 2 gifts. Yulo glanced at everyone. "Gift? You actually give gifts? When did you, kid, become so pretentious?" Newgate, Shaki and others were stunned, their faces full of surprise. This was their first experience of a pirate giving a gift to a pirate. Curious what Yulo's gift is? Don't worry, these 2 gifts will definitely not let you down. And it's the only one in the sea. A smug smile appeared on Yulo's lips. Then, under the gaze of the 6 cadres and Kaido, a blue-white flame burst out from his fingertips. The hot breath instantly swept through the entire conference room. Newgate, Shaki, Ochaku, John, Silver Axe, Linlin, and Kaido suddenly stood up and stepped back in fright. F***K. Say it carefully if you have something to say. You kid, please don't do anything to me. If this is the gift you're talking about, then you'd better put it away quickly. Lousy doesn't want to be burned to ashes. The moment they saw the flames coming out, they subconsciously had this thought. But it's not their fault, it's Yulo's flames, which are so terrifying. Both their own people and enemies like Marine and World Government were deeply impressed by it. It is one of Yulo's 2 signature features of extraordinary combat power. It can be seen from the title, Xing Yan Sword God. Well, what are you thinking about? The corners of Yulo's mouth twitched and his face turned a little dark. He really didn't expect Newgate and others to react so strongly to his flames. However, this also shows from the side that he is not a person who lives in vain. On the contrary, he has a fierce reputation. Even his own people can be frightened by him. Yulo took a deep breath and then his face straightened. Control Qinglian's heart fire to recede, leaving only the fallen heart flames. Transparent flames burned at his fingertips. Finally attracted the attention of Newgate, Shaki and others. Transparent flame? What's going on? Shouldn't it be cyan? Yes, Green flames are rare now, and transparent colors are too rare, right? Everyone who was attracted by the fallen heart flame returned to normal. Yulo smiled softly and explained. This is a special kind of flame. In addition to being powerful, it also has a nickname, called a training cheating device. It can temper the physical body and the energy in the body, speeding up the speed of cultivation and becoming stronger. As soon as these words came out, everyone exclaimed. What? Speed up your practice? Isn't this function too pervert? No wonder you became stronger so fast. I have been using him to cheat in my relationship. I am so envious of Lousy. Newgate, Ochaku, Linlin and others looked at each other with shock on their faces. You know, they have seen a lot and there is nothing they haven't seen. In terms of experience and knowledge, it is second only to the world government, which has profound knowledge and controls the world's intelligence. But they had never heard of the strange flame that could temper the body and energy. If it weren't for their trust in Yulo, they wouldn't believe it. After all, no matter whether you are strong or weak, except demon fruit power, no one's strength is slowly accumulated. Among the seven, the young Kaido was not very strong, but he was the first to react. He looked at Yulo slightly excited and asked, Kadri Yulo, do you think the gift is this transparent flame? Could it be that this kind of flame, which is called a training cheat, can also have an effect on us? Kaido asked Yulo with excitement, anxiety and hope. Although he often hangs out with the Kadris now, that's because his talent is second only to Rox and Yulo in the whole group. Not inferior to Newgate, Charlotte Linlin, Shiki and others. Although he does not yet have Kadri level strength, the Kadris all know that he will catch up in a few years. So I had no objections to it and even trained him occasionally. But if you put yourself in his shoes, he can't wait to become stronger. I truly have the confidence to fight side by side with the Kadris. Next to them, Newgate, Shiki and others also reacted, and their eyes lit up. The flame that speeds up training. If it's as Kaido said, maybe we can widen the gap in strength with Marine and the world government. At that time, it is not impossible to avenge Captain Rox and even overthrow the world government. That's right. It is said that Admiral's combat power is the shackles of the top strong men. There are no strong men who surpass Admiral's combat power in history, but there are only a few. Maybe we also have a chance to reach Yulo's level. Shiki and other 6 Kadris and Kaido stared at Yulo with burning eyes, full of desire to become stronger. In response, Yulo smiled, you'd better experience it for yourself. With the thought, the fallen heart flame on the fingertips separated into 7 transparent flames. Yulo hit everyone in the left chest. In an instant, there were 7 Kaidos in Newgate. I felt a hot heat wrap around my heart. Yulo reminded, mobilize your own energy, gradually pass through the heart, and then the cycle repeats. Everyone listened and acted accordingly. After a moment, a look of surprise appeared on his face. Because their observation Haki clearly felt that the energy passing through the heart became somewhat purer. Although the purification rate is relatively low, they have so much energy. As long as you use all your energy once, it will be somewhat purified and condensed. And with their top strength, although the energy increases very slowly, it is still improving, but it is not a quantitative change that causes a qualitative change. If you continue to practice like this, your cultivation efficiency will be several times faster. In the past, this was something they never dared to think about. At this time, Ochaku, Silver Axe, and John all exclaimed again. As this? The recovery from injuries has accelerated. Sure enough, it's miraculous. Because the energy is purer, the recovery from internal injuries is also accelerated. Ah ha ha ha. Our recovery time can be shortened by at least half. Newgate and Kaido were also very excited. Just after receiving the news that Captain Rox was publicly executed, Yulo decided to go to the meeting alone. Due to injuries and strength issues, they could only sit on Beehive Island and wait for Yulo to come back. Not to mention how aggrieved they sounded. But now, this magical flame known as the training cheat gives them hope. Their originally helpless and frustrated hearts once again ignited the flame of fighting alongside Yulo. Yulo's observation Haki noticed all this naturally and easily. Without waiting for anyone to speak, he refused directly and gave up the idea. I know what you are thinking, but we don't have enough time. In addition, Beehive Island also needs to be in charge, no matter what the world government's plans are. If I go alone, I won't be robbed. With you guys here on Honeycomb Island, I won't be robbed. A few simple words sealed everyone's escape route. Okay then. Just do as you say. Newgate had no choice but to swallow his words, and Charlotte Linlin, Shaki and others no longer had any objections. Unknowingly, after the death of Captain Rox, the cadres have regarded Yulo as their backbone. This subtle change may not even be noticed by them themselves. However, Yulo was keenly aware of it and just smiled in return. Then, he waved his hand. 7 small green beans were thrown over by him. Newgate and others subconsciously caught it, glanced at the green bean, and looked a little confused. As this? A bean? Yulo explained. Yes, it is just a bean, but it is not an ordinary bean. You can call it fairy beans, and this is the second gift I want to give you. When Newgate and others heard that the beans were also a gift, their eyes began to light up. Everything about Yulo cannot be judged by their knowledge. With the cultivation cheating device, Zhu Yu in front of them, they have realized that this bean is definitely not as simple as a bean. Sure enough, Yulo's next words left them stunned. No matter how serious the injury is, even if the heart is damaged or the body is cut in half. As long as you still have breath, eat this fairy bean and you will be healed immediately. The words fell. There was silence. Newgate and the others were breathing heavily and finally reacted. This is simply a miracle medicine. Wouldn't we have one more life in the future? Rebirth of a severed limb. How terrifying. Everyone's faces were filled with shock. There was no doubt about it, I just chose to believe it. They each looked at Shendu with hot eyes, treating it like a treasure. Even the strength of his hands began to become cautious. Just such a bean, no bigger than the belly of a finger, became extremely heavy in their hands, almost as heavy as their own lives. Okay. Now that the gifts have been delivered, I'm going to take the first step. You should hurry up and recuperate, regain your strength as soon as possible, and at the same time, stay vigilant to prevent your home from being robbed. When I solve this matter, I will come back as soon as possible. Yulo warned. Newgate and others nodded solemnly. Then, Yulo walked out of the skeleton castle, turned into a stream of light, rose into the sky, and disappeared into the sky so fast that Newgate and others were stunned. With Yulo's departure, Newgate and others began to take charge. Various warning orders were issued, and the remaining crew members took action in an orderly manner to defend the final base camp of Honeycomb Island. Newgate and others also quickly returned to their positions. While sitting on Honeycomb Island, he stabilized the morale of the military. Use the practice cheat tool to start speeding up your injury recovery. As Yulo said, they want to prevent their home from being robbed. Although I can't go to the Holy Land Marie Joyce with Yulo to fight side by side. But there are things they can do. That is to guard Beehive Island so that Yulo has no worries. Time flies. In a blink of an eye, execution day came. Grand line. All major forces in the world, franchised countries, non-franchised countries, major pirate groups, dark world organizations, etc. All powers worth their salt in the world are eyeing the Holy Land of Marie Joyce. This is true even for small forces in some places, because when huge turmoil occurs, it often affects the whole body. The series of reactions triggered may be disasters, but they are also accompanied by opportunities for rise. It's approaching noon. Holy Land Marie Joyce, headquarters of world government. A tall and wide execution platform has already been built in the empty square. The execution platform was divided into several distinct high platforms. There were 2 executioners on the lowermost platform, holding beheading knives no less powerful than large sharp knives. They stood indifferently on both sides of the execution frame. There are 5 seats on the high platform above. The person on the seat is Marine Admiral Kong, Marine Admiral Quincy, as well as Sengoku, Garp and Zephyr, whose positions are not admiral, but whose strength is better than admiral. All 5 of them were seriously injured in the Battle of the Valley of Gods. Although they have not recovered yet, at the request of the 5 elders, they still came to sit with their injuries. On the high platform above are 5 more people: the Commander-in-Chief of the Army, the Deputy Commander-in-Chief of the Army, the Field Marshal, and 2 Army Admirals. On the 4th floor high platform, there were also 5 people leading the group, all wearing white robes. Behind the 5 people there were 13 others, not wearing white robes, but all wearing white suits. It seems that they are all high-ranking CP0 officials, and the 5 people leading them should be the commanders. As for the top floor, there are also 5 seats. It's just that compared to the seats below, they are much more luxurious. No doubt. This is the seat of the 5 elders, the most powerful people in the world government. Under the execution platform, there is no marine, a scene of 100,000 army privates. Instead, it was empty. because the lineup on the high platform alone is enough to sweep across the sea. If there were another battle of the Valley of the Gods, the world government would win without any surprise. Even the so-called largest battle in history, Summit War. It also pales in comparison with this lineup. And the reason why the world government brought out such a powerful lineup was just to execute one rocks? Of course not. All the people and forces paying attention here know it well. This is just to deal with a young man who is less than 20 years old and whose strength is already invincible in the world. His name is Yulo, nicknamed Qing Yan Sword God. At noon, execution time has arrived. One of the 5 white-robed commanders waved gently, and the phone bugs that had been arranged in every corner started the live broadcast. All phone bugs around the world who could watch the live broadcast seemed to feel the call at this moment, and they automatically unfolded the images. The shocking scene in Marie Joy's, the Holy Land, is brought to the world's eyes. In an instant, the world was boiling. No one expected that world government would choose to publicly broadcast the execution of pirate overlord Rox. Although the news released 3 days ago was a public execution, it is not the same concept as a public live broadcast of an execution. This move will not only demonstrate the majesty of world government around the world, but also enhance the prestige of world government in the hearts of everyone, whether powerful or civilians. It also represents the execution of the pirate overlord Rox, and the world government is absolutely sure of victory. After all, people know in their hearts that they are faced with such provocation and humiliation. With Yulo's strength and style, no matter whether he can succeed or not, he will definitely give it a try. At this moment, all major pirate groups, underground forces, and leaders of the kingdom were all attracted to the execution platform. For a moment, the more than 20 figures sitting or standing on the clearly defined several-story high platform directly made their minds tremble. Then, what lineup is that? Marine Marshal, Marine Admiral, Commander-in-Chief of the Army, Field Marshal, Army Admiral. Oh my god, that's crazy. And those 18 white figures are definitely the legendary CP0, known as the Celestial Dragons, strongest shield. Their top combat power is even better than that of Marine. And the 5 seats at the top should be for the 5 elders, right? Because all the 5 elders died in the Battle of the Valley of Gods, are these 5 seats temporarily vacant? Does it matter whether there are 5 elders or not? Even if a new 5 elders is elected now, the strength and prestige are still at a low point, and they will not play a big role. Anyway, the combat power of this lineup has far exceeded that of the Battle of the Valley of the Gods. What's more, we are still at the World Government headquarters. Who could have guessed what other hidden cards there are? Even if Yulo and the 6 major cadres come together, I'm afraid they can only fight with Rox. Ahahaha. Isn't this bad? That guy Yulo is dead, wouldn't everyone be happy? Hey, that's true. Although Yulo is extremely powerful, he is still a pirate and has no rules. If he must live under rule, Laozi would still prefer world government. In just a few moments, the words of the major pirate groups, underground forces, and leaders of the kingdom have changed from a lineup that shocked the world government to one that Yulo will definitely die during this trip. However, there are no absolutes in everything. There are also a small number of people who believe that although Yulo will fail in this trip, he will not die here. For example, the Roger pirates, who suffered heavy losses in the Battle of the Valley of Gods, are currently huddled on an unknown island, watching the live broadcast. Except for a group of elite crew members and the fallen Jabba. Only Roger, Bullet, and Rayleigh, who were seriously injured and had yet to recover, were the only top combatants left. Rayleigh, what are the chances that Yulo will die? Roger's face was gloomy, and his eyes were full of gloom. Jabba's death hit him hard. As a result, these days have been like a year for him. Even though he knows he is not his opponent, he still can't help but want to avenge Jabba countless times. Not just him, but everyone. But among them, only Rayleigh behaved calmly. Yulo's swordsmanship has reached the highest level. It is not easy to kill him. At least with the current lineup of world government, it will be difficult to do it. Rayleigh's words were like the tip of a needle, piercing the hearts of Roger and others, causing endless pain and regret. However, the next moment, Rayleigh changed the topic. However, with the world government's stubbornness, there will definitely be more than just these arrangements on the surface. After all, it is their base camp, and there must be hidden methods behind the scenes. When Roger and others heard this, the gloom in their eyes dissipated a bit, as if they saw hope. What's the chance of killing Yulo? Unexpectedly, Rayleigh still shook his head, with a wry smile on his face. It's easier said than done. Although the odds are higher than the apparent odds, when the time comes, if Yulo wants to leave, Will the world government be able to stop him? In just a few words, the mood of Roger and others fell into the abyss again. At this moment, they can only pray that the world government can be more powerful. The faces of Roger and others were ashen, and the gloom in their eyes was like a pool of stagnant water. They knew in their hearts that if world government's lineup could not kill Yulo, then there is a high probability that they will have no hope of revenge. On another small island, inside the tavern, Monkey D. Dragon, who was drinking alone, was also watching the live broadcast. The guests in other seats were all drinking and bragging. Only he seemed unusually calm. The boss and guests couldn't help but feel surprised. But what they don't know is that Monkey D. Dragon's calmness is only superficial. In fact, deep in his heart, various emotions were intertwined and difficult to describe. Yulo's strength allows him to see the hope of the collapse of the world government. It exhilarated and excited him. It's just that the background of world government is really terrible, far more than what is exposed at this moment. Whether Yulo can succeed and whether the world will be liberated. This made him worried. On the screen, the live broadcast continued. Almost at the same moment, Marine Senior Management Kong and others, the Commander-in-Chief of the Army and others suddenly stood up solemnly. Along with the 18 strong men in white robes and white suits, they turned to face behind them, and their solemn eyes fell on the 5 luxurious seats on the top floor. Without warning, 5 figures appeared out of thin air in front of the seat. They all look like middle-aged men, and they seem to be about the same age as Sengoku and Garp. Although he is young, he is full of majesty and has the aura of a superior, no weaker than the previous 5 elders. And the 5 of them all have some traces of their predecessors, the 5 elders, in appearance and dress. It's like they come from the same origin. This scene made people watching the live broadcast from all over the world freeze in place. Aren't the 5 elders dead? They thought these 5 seats were just decorations to show their respect for the 5 elders. Who knew that 5 middle-aged men who looked like 5 elders would actually appear? It only lasted a few days. Have the 5 elders taken over again? This is the person with the highest authority. Do you want to be so hasty? After 5 middle-aged men appeared, they sat down by themselves with expressionless faces. There was no change in his eyes or face, everything was so calm and calm. When they sat down, the Marines, the Army, the Commander-in-Chief of the Army, and the Celestial Dragon's strongest shield all greeted them at the same time. Lord 5 Elders. Although the voice was not loud, the respectful tone in it was clear. 5 elders made no waves, just said 3 words calmly. Let's start. All the top experts present nodded in unison, and then returned to their seats. The Commander-in-Chief of the entire army stood up and loudly announced that Rock's execution had officially begun. At this point, people in front of the live broadcast screens all over the world held their breaths in unison. Next, the main event is about to take place, and at the same time. Beehive Island in the New World. 6 Rock's pirate officials and Kaido were sitting in front of the meeting, also watching the live broadcast. The moment the 5 elders show up, the faces of the 7 people all looked ugly at the same time. Because these 5 guys, the new 5 elders of the world government, ambushed and killed Rocks with their own hands. And it was in front of them, but they had no power to resist. They never want to experience that feeling of sadness, anger, and powerlessness again for the second time in their lives. I hope Yulo cadres will be more cautious. After all, it is the headquarters of the world government. No matter what conspiracy the 5 elders have, we still hope that Yulo cadres will put their own safety first. Kaido stared at the terrifying lineup assembled by the world government on the live broadcast screen, clenched his fists until the veins bulged, and said to himself with a solemn expression. Bang! Bang! In the live broadcast, the sound of gold and gold clashing was heard. I saw a burly figure suddenly appear under the execution platform. Ragged clothes, disheveled hair. Step by step, he walked up to the execution platform with faltering steps. Messy and dirty black hair covered his face, making it difficult to see the person's face clearly. But almost everyone recognized this person, the pirate Rocks. Because his figure is so familiar. Exactly the same as the reward order. At this moment, countless ordinary people faced all this and cheered in unison and became excited. After all, in the course of their lives, it was unimaginable to see a pirate overlord like Rocks publicly executed. After all, Rox's reputation is known to everyone in the sea, including even a 3-year-old child. And the world government that can capture Rox has invisibly raised several levels in the hearts of ordinary people. It has to be said that the public live broadcast of executions has achieved very good results. Unlike most ordinary people, the strong men of the major forces reacted completely differently. Because they were all keenly aware that something was wrong. That figure was undoubtedly Rox. The world government dares to broadcast the live broadcast publicly and will not fool people with such things. But what makes them strange is that Rox's state is really hard to describe. Anyone who has some strength doesn't know Rox's attitude towards world government. It can be said that he is a life or death enemy, killing everyone on sight. However, at this moment, Rox actually walked to the execution platform honestly. Even. Rox, the dignified pirate overlord, actually got on the execution rack and knelt on his knees in front of the whole world. This is really outrageous, totally out of character. The powerful men from all the major forces stared at it. Beehive Island. The remaining pirates also saw this scene. He screamed in disbelief. No, that's not possible, he's not Captain Rox, absolutely not. Captain Rox had already died at that time, and died under our noses. This Rox must be a fake. The real Captain Rox will never give in to those bastards from the world government. Even Newgate and others in the Skull Castle conference room firmly believed that this man was not the real Captain Rox. In other words, they believe that Rox is already dead, and the behavior of Rox's body on the execution platform is not his own will. The person who firmly believes this is undoubtedly Charlotte Linlin, her beautiful eyes flashing with anger and murderous intent. The history of the sea is full of wonders, just like Yulo's magical flame. With the 800 years of world government, it is too easy to achieve this. The most likely thing is the devil fruit's ability to control the actions of dead corpses. My soul fruit can also do this. What I didn't expect was that even if they killed Captain Rox, they would actually live broadcast the humiliation in such a public way. Kaido, who was beside him, was also jealous of evil and agreed with gritted teeth. Yes, this disgusting behavior is simply more inhumane than us pirates. Newgate, Shiki, Silver Axe, John, Ochaku didn't speak. But their chests rising and falling violently undoubtedly indicated that they were extremely angry. Holy Place Marie Joyce, the highest level of the execution platform. The corners of the 5 elders' mouths were slightly raised, showing their contempt for everything. Although I didn't get to see the reaction of the Rox pirate people with my own eyes. But they knew that the expression must be wonderful. It's almost time. The leader, the old man with bald head and glasses, held the demon sword kite in his arms and said calmly. Upon hearing this, the commander-in-chief of the army below immediately raised his voice and shouted. Start the execution. Sound waves swept across all directions. It came from countless live broadcasts. People all over the world watched the live broadcast with rapt attention. For a time, an almost suffocating and depressive atmosphere filled every corner of the world. On the execution platform, Rox, with disheveled hair covering his face, knelt on the ground. It's strangely honest, as if he has resigned himself to his fate. The 2 executioners looked at each other, took a few steps forward at the same time, and raised their blades in tacit agreement. At this moment, people all over the world subconsciously held their breath. The commander-in-chief of the army, the field marshal, 18 white figures, marine and others who were still injured, all the muscles under their robes were highly tense. On the highest stage, the 5 elders' big hands were grasped on the armrests of the seats, and the blood vessels were like thick earthworms entwined on the back of the hands. Underneath his seemingly calm expression, he was actually ready to face the storm. Between heaven and earth, it was as if he heard the inner appeal of the 5 elders. There began to be sounds of footsteps approaching from far away. Clatter, 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 in the blink of an eye. The sound of footsteps had already reached the top of the execution platform from a distance. The originally light sound turned into a deafening sound. Like a drum in the void, every sound beat hard on everyone's heart. Here he comes. He's here. In the crowd watching the live broadcast, the eyes of strong men from all over the world widened and their whole bodies trembled with excitement. Anyone can tell that this is the sound of footsteps made by normal people walking. And it can make the footsteps roar out of the void with a deafening force. Yulo is the only one in the whole sea. Coming? Then Yulo is coming? Oh my God. How dare he? How dare he? No, this is the headquarters of world government. I always thought it was just a rumor. I didn't expect that he actually dared to come. Most ordinary people also reacted quickly. Everyone looked shocked and their eyes were full of disbelief. Although Yulo's power has spread throughout the sea, they have no idea of this. I only watched the live broadcast with the attitude of watching the excitement, and did not expect to see Yulo break into world government alone. After all, no matter how strong Yulo is, he can still defeat the entire world government on his own. Besides, Yulo is a pirate. They don't really trust a pirate to have the courage to break into the world government for another pirate. I don't know if this is something only a fool would do. Being able to witness the pirate overlord Rox losing his head with their own eyes is something they would never dare to think about. But now, Yulo is actually here. Although he hasn't shown up yet, judging from the reactions of those people, it should be true. This is too crazy. On the execution platform, with the sound of footsteps, the two executioners held their swords high, fear flashing deep in their eyes. But the adults on the high platform did not give any orders, so they could only cut it down. Boom. Suddenly, there was a roar. The two of them moved for a moment, and the energy and blood in their bodies surged wildly. His face turned red, and blood flowed upwards, spurting wildly from his mouth. A clang. The sharp blade fell to the ground, and the two of them exploded to death. The blood mist spread in the air and dissipated quickly. In full view of everyone, the two men died instantly. Until now, Yulo has not shown up yet. Everyone watching the live broadcast was shocked into silence. Only the crew and officers of the Rox pirate far away on Beehive Island were relieved and laughing. On the high platform, the commander-in-chief of the entire army stood up angrily. The murderer Yulo. Now that you're here, why don't you show up yet? While shouting angrily, observation Hockey swept away, with deep fear flashing in his eyes. Because no matter how he sensed it, he couldn't catch Yulo's breath. The five elders who were sitting upright narrowed their eyes slightly. Yulo's power was vividly visible, and they began to feel nervous subconsciously. Although they are well prepared for this plan, in order to ensure nothing goes wrong, they must be cautious. He he he. In the air, contemptuous laughter echoed. A group of transparent flames, almost invisible to the naked eye, gathered and Yulo's figure appeared. There was a simple black long knife hanging on his waist, and the corner of his mouth showed a hint of confidence. Five elders, I haven't seen you for a few days and you are getting bolder. The light words directly mocked the five elders in public. Five elders' face darkened, and he snorted coldly. Snort. The murderer Yulo and Rox have committed a heinous crime and are on death row. Are you coming here to disrupt the execution? How could the five elders not hear the sarcasm in Yulo's words? But today is different from the past. A few days ago, they secretly laid an ambush and failed to destroy the Rox group in a sneak attack. Instead, they were repelled by Yulo alone. Considering Yulo's strength, they decisively admitted defeat. But today, the situation is reversed. It will only be Yulo who admits defeat. Stop putting on that high-sounding, hypocritical posture of justice. Absolutely disgusting, Yulo replied without hesitation. Then the robes stirred and Conqueror's Hockey broke out. The jet-black airflow swept across the place and instantly enveloped the entire holy land of Marie Joys. Aha! The expressions of the five elders, Marine and others all changed. It felt like the sky was falling, and all his energy and abilities were suppressed. I couldn't help but groan. The commander-in-chief of the army gritted his teeth slightly. Are you going to go to war with the world government? The tone was not a question, but more like a question. As soon as these words came out, people watching the live broadcast around the world fell silent. Because it depends on how Yulo responds. Yulo shook his head. War. You think too much. Everyone on Beehive Island breathed a sigh of relief when they saw this. Everyone in Roger's group was slightly reluctant. And more of them are those strong people watching the show, not to mention how disappointed they are. It would be great if a war started, it would only be good for them. After all, he is just a powerful individual. Facing the behemoth of world government, he still has to choose to surrender. The five elders almost laughed in anger. I thought I was so brave, but this is what happened. But it doesn't matter, it's all out of your hands. The five elders looked at each other and were about to speak. Who knows? Suddenly, the jet-black airflow that filled the entire holy land of Marie Joys suddenly rolled back. The invisible huge impact caused countless palaces to collapse and collapse, leaving spider web-like cracks on the ground. Under the astonished eyes of everyone, a large amount of Conqueror's Hockey was pulled back by Yulo and wrapped around the left fist. It exuded energy fluctuations that shocked everyone. Lousy came this time. To destroy you. After more than 800 years of world government, it's time to end. Yulo's cold words echoed in everyone's ears. The faces of the five elders and others visibly turned into anger. However, Yulo's attack was already ready to go. Before the five elders could speak, Yulo's entire figure was like drawing a bow and firing. Ba-tang. The left fist wrapped around the top conqueror's haki slammed down hard. Boom. 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 A deafening sound broke through the air. People watching the live broadcast around the world couldn't help but cover their ears. Yulo's punch was wrapped around the top conqueror's haki's punch. At this moment, it had been hit hard in midair. The extremely concentrated black conqueror's airflow, after violent friction with the air, directly shot out black liquid lightning. Where Yulo struck with his left fist, white airwaves rippled out, creating a vacuum. The impact of this circle of white airwaves alone has swept a 10-mile radius in all directions. In the distance, below the red line, the sea was stirred up by rough waves. This horrific scene was spread around the world by the phone bug. No matter they were civilians or nobles, weak or strong, they were all stunned. Because no matter how strong they are, they can't be stronger than Yulo. What kind of strength is this? It's not something humans can do at all, right? Isn't it similar to Marine Admiral? Laozi has seen Marine Admiral fight. Why does he feel that he is not worthy of carrying Yulo's shoes? What happened with this punch? The sea surface was lifted out, so why is the Holy Land Marie Joy's below okay? What do you know, you weakling? This is Conqueror's haki. It can create invisible impacts from across the air. Keep an eye on you. FCK. Look, there's something going on. Those people in white are fighting back. All 18 of them are taking action. This is too fair. Most people don't understand what Conqueror's entanglement is. After seeing Yulo punch him, the airwaves swept thousands of miles. The sea below the red line was lifted up, but no substantial attack was made. They were all full of confusion. But with a burst of exclamation, they saw the first shocking scene of this battle. Unlike those watching the live broadcast, Yulo was dominating with one punch. The 5 elders, Marine, Commander-in-Chief and others had no time and mood to be angry at Yulo's arrogance. Everyone's expressions turned into horror in an instant. This is the top level of domination. The strongest shield is fully deployed to defend. The 5 elders couldn't sit still anymore and stood up suddenly from their seats, all looking furious. Damn it. Yulo has become cunning. He actually resorted to the childish trick of talking loudly and out of breath. The key is that they were really fooled. He just let his guard down for a moment, and then a top-notch tyrant came crashing down on him. It caught everyone present off guard. At the moment, we can only temporarily defend against this attack and then counterattack. Otherwise, if it's an attack against an attack, hit it hard. The energy explosion of 1+1, which is greater than 2, will directly collapse Marie Joy's, the holy place located on the edge of the red line. The 5 elders just finished speaking. 18 figures in white rose into the sky, showing speed that was no slower than admiral-level combat power. Marine, the commander-in-chief of the army and others all looked solemn and were about to take action, and they all breathed a sigh of relief when they saw this. According to Yulo's combat performance in the Valley of the Gods, the combat power of the 13 admirals can be shaken with all his strength. However, he fought too crazy in that battle. Not only did he overextend his potential and physical strength, he also suffered serious injuries. Definitely not all recovered in such a short period of time. Coupled with the sudden attack, it should be more of a test. Therefore, this attack is at most 70% to 80% of its strength. 18 Admiral combat forces took action at the same time to defend against this attack with all their strength. It can be said to be more than enough. But even so, everyone did not dare to let down their guard, and their solemn eyes were fixed on Yulo. No one can predict whether Yulo will suddenly do this again. In midair, 18 white-clothed figures just stood still. An extremely strong wind pressure descended from Gaia in the sky. Suddenly, it was like an invisible giant mountain falling. The 18 people felt as if their shoulders were heavy, and something was trying to push them down. Even the execution platform on the ground made a clicking sound, and cracks began to appear. Fortunately, they were strong and stood firm again. They lined up in a row, stretched out their arms, and pushed upwards. Boom. There was a roar. 18 strands of invisible armament haki were released by them, forming an invisible armed defense barrier. When the 5 elders saw this, their frowns relaxed slightly. They know very well that these people are the 18 strongest people in the strongest shield. Everyone's armament haki is of high-level strength, and all of them have mastered the high-level application skills of armament. Even Yulo's full-strength airborne impact was enough to block it firmly. At this time, the invisible conqueror's winding attack encountered obstacles and began to show its true physical state in midair. A large amount of black liquid lightning intertwined into spider web-like arcs. It hit the invisible armed-colored defense wall in front of it. Bang! Under everyone's gaze, the 18 white-clothed figures were shaken, blood spurted out from their mouths at the same time, and they stepped back. Under the influence of the huge counter-shock force, the air beneath his feet exploded one after another. They finally managed to stabilize their figure, just when they thought they had successfully blocked it. Click! Click! There were sounds like breaking glass. Instantly attracted the attention of everyone present. What? Can't stop it. The 5 elders looked in shock. Boom. The next moment, the sound of breaking suddenly came. The defense wall of armament hockey that was blocking the advance of the black liquid lightning collapsed. The conqueror's entangling attack had no obstacles and rushed towards the 18 white-clothed figures with overwhelming momentum. So fast that they had no time to react. He was directly hit by the huge impact. Blood scattered in the air. 10 figures were like falling meteorites slamming into the ground in front of the execution platform. Boom. Dust flew and gravel sputtered. The invisible force spread to the execution platform in the Pangu city building behind it. The already cracked execution platform and various buildings suddenly collapsed. The 5 elders, the commander-in-chief of the army, the marine army and others had already carried the rocks and jumped high to avoid being affected. Until the dust settled and they landed on the ruins again. In a deep and wide pit, there were originally 18 figures in white, but now their expressions were sluggish and their auras were sluggish. The white clothes were already stained with scarlet, and he was trying to stand up unsteadily. When the 5 elders saw this, their pupils shrank sharply and they were horrified. Yulo quickly turned his gaze to the sky, suppressed the panic in his heart, and said tremblingly, Your strength. In just a few days, not only have you recovered from your injuries, but your strength has also improved? Kong, Quincy, Garp and others also looked in disbelief. After the First World War in the Valley of the Gods, they enjoyed the most advanced and excellent medical conditions in the world government. But until now, the injury has only recovered half, and he can barely exert his full strength, but he can't last long. Once the injury backfires, his strength will be greatly reduced. With this attack, Yulo easily defeated the 18 admirals, which was much stronger than when the Valley of Gods fought against the 13 admirals alone. This is obviously a substantial improvement in strength. An island somewhere in the ocean. When Yulo shot down 18 CP0 senior officials with a powerful attack, he appeared on the live broadcast screen. Monkey D. Dragon, who was drinking, accidentally crushed his glass and stood up from his seat. So strong. His eyes were fixed on the young figure standing above Pangu City in the live broadcast. The battle had just begun when Yulo gave him a big surprise. Originally, he had the same idea as the 5 elders, thinking that this battle was too hasty for Yulo. With the world government's careful calculations and all-out preparations, Yulo, who didn't even have time to recover from his injuries in the Valley of Gods battle, couldn't take advantage of it no matter how you looked at it. The best outcome in his calculation was that Yulo would rush in with all his strength, take away Rock's body, and then turn around and run away to temporarily avoid the danger. But despite all the calculations, it still failed to occur. How could the most evil monster genius in the history of the sea be judged by normal people's cognition and thinking? In just a few days, what no top powerhouse could do was to recover a body that had been overdrawn and severely damaged by the backlash. This monster genius Yulo did it. And on the basis of returning to the original state, his strength once again ushered in a qualitative leap. At this thought, the original light of joy and sorrow in Monkey D. Dragon's eyes was replaced by a look of surprise. Great. Great. This time at least I can give the world government a hard time. Although I don't understand how Yulo did it, there is no doubt that it is exactly what he wanted. Now he is in a stage where he has empty ideals but no ability to implement them. With the defeat of the strongest pirate group Rocks, he realized the power of world government. Some people can't help but feel that the ideal future is particularly gloomy. Yulo's strong start to the war broke the desperate situation that trapped him, proving that the world government is not invincible. On different islands in different sea areas, World, Redfield, Brook and others who witnessed the battle in the Valley of the Gods were also shocked for a while, and then began to be ecstatic. They were surprised that Yulo's level was so high that they couldn't understand it, but they were delighted that the world government was afraid that it would suffer a big loss. They are very happy to see the world government shooting itself in the foot. Beehive Island, Rock's Group Base Camp. Kadri's Silver Axe, Golden Lion Shaki, John, Ochaku, Whitebeard Newgate, and Charlotte Linlin all took a breath. The eyes that looked at the live broadcast screen were so wide that they almost fell out of their sockets. Holy shit, Yulo's strength is so terrifying? That's right. No wonder we have to go. I feel like he can destroy the world government by himself. That's not the point, right? What Lousy wants to know most is why the stronger Yulo is, the faster he improves. Looking at the strength he is showing now, it is at least twice as strong as it was a few days ago, right? As soon as these words came out, the 6 people were stunned and fell into silence. Yes, it's not unusual for injuries to heal. The translucent flame has quite a magical effect on healing. In the past few days, most of their injuries have basically recovered. What's weird is how quickly Yulo's strength improves. They would not have been like this in the past, because Yulo was not strong at that time, but with his monster-like talent, his strength was in a period of rapid growth. Although this so-called growth period is so much faster. Now, Yulo's strength has surpassed all the top strong men in the sea, reaching a realm that no one has ever set foot in throughout the ages. It stands to reason that the stronger the strength, the slower the improvement will be. Just say that with their current strength, even if they practice hard until death, they will not become much stronger, at most 20 to 30%. Of course, the premise is that there is no practice cheating device. And if Yulo's strength is calculated in terms of quantity, it is already equivalent to the total quantity of more than a dozen of them. Based on such a huge strength, he actually doubled his strength? What kind of concept is this? In the equivalent of a few days, Yulo's strength has increased by more than a dozen of them, and his total strength has reached a terrifying level equal to 30 of them. What the hell? Golden Lion Shiki, John and Silver Axe, Newgate, Ochaku and others thought of this and looked at each other, seeing envy in their own eyes. Thinking about their own talents and cultivation progress, each of them looked as uncomfortable as if they were constipated. F***ked. If you don't compare, you don't know. If you compare, you will be shocked. If Yulo improves a few more times according to his progress, won't it mean that the end of the world will come with just one hit? It's so scary just thinking about it. Newgate, Shiki and others were trembling all over and did not dare to continue thinking about it. People are so irritating. Kaido on the side saw this and complained speechlessly. I said, why are you competing with Boss Yulo? You still understand after such a long time. Yulo, Yamato, you are not the same person at all. Kaido complained at first, and then at the end, he looked at Yulo in the live broadcast screen. His eyes were full of admiration. He was a proper superfan. Although he is actually a bit older than Yulo. After hearing Kaido's words, the officials looked over with contempt in their eyes. But even though Kaido was very licking, they agreed with what he said. That kid Yulo is not a human at all, but a ferocious beast in human skin. At the same time, the Roger pirates, Roger, Rayleigh and others, who were all wrapped in gauze, were also incredulous when they saw Yulo's strength and condition. But after a while, I had no choice but to accept it, because the facts were already in front of me. The eyes of Roger and others were dim, and there was a hint of sadness on their faces. Facing Yulo's terrifying power, they had no ability to avenge Jabba. They finally saw a hope, but it was shattered in the blink of an eye. Hateful. Roger roared uncontrollably, his heart filled with deep reluctance. As powerful as the world government is, it can't do anything to Yulo, so what's the point of all he has done? Not only did he lose an important partner, but he also became a mortal enemy with Yulo. With Yulo's current strength, his original intention of doing all this, in order to achieve the ideal of the legendary Raftel, also became Kyoka Suigetsu. At this moment, Roger regretted a little and questioned whether his choice was worth it. The unwillingness turned into pain and entanglement. Rayleigh watched from the side and could guess what Roger was thinking at the moment. I wanted to speak, but the words came to my mind, but I couldn't say them out. He had no choice but to reach out and pat Roger on the shoulder to express comfort. The surrounding crew members were silent when they saw this. For a moment, the atmosphere fell into dead silence. Holy Land Marie Joys. In addition to the outer city, you can still vaguely see the luxury and grandeur of the past. The entire inner city of Pengu City has been turned into a deep pit. In the deep pit, the 18 CP0 commanders forced themselves to stand up. The 5 elders have not yet terminated their orders to stop Yulo. No matter how serious their injuries are, no matter how strong Yulo is, no matter how scared they are. Also stay in front and face Yulo. But in midair, Yulo, who was condescending, simply ignored them. Look directly at 5 elders and others. Hand over Rock's body. Maybe I can make your death less ugly. The 18 CP0 leaders no longer pose a threat. In their current state, they cannot even take a single blow from Yulo. The 5 elders, Kong and others, Yulo's words echoed in their ears. I just felt like my face turned red and I couldn't help but feel ashamed to be humiliated like this by Yulo in front of the whole world. Even though he knew that Yulo was extremely powerful, his murderous intention couldn't help but spread, gradually surpassing his fear. Yulo. I don't believe it. You can really defeat our world government by yourself. The leader of the 5 elders, the bald old man with glasses, shouted angrily, refusing to admit defeat. Then there is no more stalemate. Give the order directly. Give it all to me. Commander-in-Chief of the Army, Marine Marshal, Field Marshal, Marine Army Admiral and others. All of them showed a terrifying aura without any reservation. The sound of breaking through the air sounded one after another. Including the 18 CP0 leaders, the 5 elders in the Marine Army, all the strong men on the world government side. They all rise into the sky and kill Yulo. The speed of more than 30 top experts directly penetrated the air wherever they passed. Before even launching an attack, the speed of light was already bursting with sonic booms, and the chaotic and violent airflow swept through a radius of more than 10 miles like a hurricane. The appearance of this scene directly caused all the people watching the battle around the world to boil in an instant. F*K. 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 The world government is taking action with all its strength. This is leaving no room for mercy and will not stop until death. The battle between Yulo, the strongest person in the world, and more than 30 top experts from the world government, it will definitely go down in history. The major kingdoms, pirate groups, and leaders of forces. Monkey D. Dragon, Rogers Group, Redfield, Shaki Newgate and others. Everyone could not help but widen their eyes, as if they were immersed in the scene, and their bodies and minds became tense. They are all looking forward to the outcome of this battle. Boom. 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 In all directions with Yulo as the center. More than 30 top experts from the world government all arrived. A daunting siege formed. Attack with all your strength. Don't hold anything back. The 5 elders' determined and murderous shouts sounded. All the powerful 5 elders in the army directly cast Conqueror's Entanglement. Conqueror's Haki, which contains terrifying power, wraps around their fists or weapons. Although the 18 CP0 commanders did not possess Conquerors, they still performed the 6 styles and mysteries that were not inferior to them. 6 King's Spear. 18 impact waves that could destroy mountains and seas condensed out. Boom. The terrifying attack was all directed at Yulo. Even the space seemed to be shaking violently and unbearably. It seemed like it would break apart at any moment. Faced with the strong wind that could destroy a mountain just by the attack of 5 elders and others, Yulo remained unmoved. But a green light suddenly appeared under the feet, and a green lotus platform appeared, blocking all the strong wind. Same time. Green flames continuously poured out from the lotus platform. A huge green fire lotus with blooming lotus leaves condenses below Yulo. The moment when an attack like that of a wild beast comes in an instant. Green fire lotus blooms with closed lotus leaves. It turns into a budding green fire lotus to protect Yulo. Boom. 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 More than 30 Conqueror's Entanglements and 6 styles, mysteries, and 6 King Spears were bombarded from all directions and from different angles. Deafening collisions resounded one after another. Wave after wave of ripples appeared on the huge green fire lotus that was just about to bloom. What followed was an earth-shattering energy explosion. An energy group with a diameter of 100 meters appeared instantly. And it's still expanding. In an instant, the area has expanded to cover thousands of meters in radius. Whether it's Yulo, 5 elders or others, they are all submerged in it. Boom. There was an explosion. It can be described as earth-shattering. The energy mass that spread to ultimate exploded. Blue high-temperature flames, conquerors and shockwaves, 3 tyrannical energies intertwined. Just like the huge waves when a tsunami occurs, it sweeps in all directions with the power of destroying the world. An apocalyptic scene unfolds on Red Line. The huge holy land of Marie Joyce was instantly excavated into a sinkhole. It was like being hit by a meteorite falling from the sky. The surface of the Red Line outward from the surroundings of this sinkhole also began to crack. One after another, ravines and cracks like abyss spread. The Red Line, which circled half of the planet, was engulfed in violent shaking. Wow! The edge of the Red Line even cracked a big hole. The turbulent seawater poured in, filling the abyss in an instant, and finally poured into the meteorite crater. And all the live phone bugs that were originally placed around were now wiped out. Live broadcasts around the world were frozen in the moment of energy explosion. Then all the screens disappeared. Everyone was filled with intense exclamation and regret. We can only find out after the news of this battle spreads across the sea. Even the dragons, Redfield, everyone in Roger's group, Newgate Shaki and others who are far away in the world. They are also full of shock and regret. We cannot witness this battle, which is worthy of being called an unparalleled battle in the annals of history. And above the red line at this moment, the earth-shattering energy fluctuations gradually dispersed. The 5 elders and all the strong men in the army were revealed to be in a state of embarrassment after being affected by the energy explosion. And the green fire lotus has dissipated, but Yulo is still standing on the lotus platform, safe and sound. No. This is impossible. Staring at Yulo, who was safe and sound. The 5 elders, Kong, Sangoku, Garp, Zephyr and others were all in disbelief and extremely horrified. This was a full blow from more than 30 of their top experts. Why can't I hurt Yulo at all? Compared with the 5 elders, the strong men of the army, and others who were in a state of embarrassment and extremely frightened. Yulo definitely looks completely different. From beginning to end, he looked calm and calm. That is the momentum of being confident in one's own strength, full of confidence, and in control of the overall situation. The 5 elders and others who used to be so high and mighty in the past now feel ashamed in front of Yulo. It's as if the situation has been turned upside down. Yulo is the aloof god, and they have become tiny ants. At this moment, the 5 elders looked frightened. Facing the unshakable Yulo, they just came up and launched a wave of attacks. His mentality was almost broken, and he had the idea of giving up resistance. If it weren't for that adult behind them, the 5 elders might really give up resistance and choose to surrender directly. Yulo is so strong. It was so strong that 5 elders felt there was no chance of winning. At least if that adult doesn't take action, they will definitely lose if they rely on them alone. The commander-in-chief of the army, Kong, Sangoku and others also looked at the 5 elders. Since they have no chance of winning, we can only place our hope on the 5 elders. After all, he is the most powerful person in the world government. With more than 800 years of experience, he may not have any hidden cards. The 5 elders felt the eyes of everyone, and of course they knew what these people were thinking. However, he hesitated to speak. He wanted to speak but did not dare to speak. After all, the existence of that adult must not be exposed. And with that adult's strength, he must always be paying attention to the battle situation here. He hasn't taken action yet, he must have his own plan. They can't just beg that adult to take action quickly, right? I'm afraid that even if they ask for help, the adult will not pay attention to them. In this way, the 5 elders and others knew that they were outmatched and no longer took the initiative to attack Yulo. They could only maintain the siege formation and guard against Yulo's movements with utmost fear. Yulo stood quietly, not wary of the 5 elders and others. These people no longer pose any threat to him. Instead, he has been releasing top-notch knowledge and perception, and is wary of disturbances within a radius of dozens of miles. Because just now, after he easily blocked the attack of 5 elders and others, he was about to take action and defeat them in one fell swoop. The long-lost reminder sounded. Ding. Trigger mission check-in. Host. Please confront the world government's hidden combat power next time it takes action. The reward depends on the situation of the confrontation. It will be automatically distributed after the task is completed. A sudden trigger task check-in. This made Yulo not take action for the time being, and also reminded Yulo. The hidden combat power of the world government will definitely take action against him. As for who the so-called hidden combat power is, whether it is Lord I Am, this is unknown. But it does not prevent Yulo from knowing it in advance and being more cautious. But after a while, he didn't notice any movement. It seems that even the hidden combat power of the world government is particularly cautious towards him. Looking for the best time to take action. That's it. Get rid of you first. It's not too late to deal with them after they come out. During the stalemate between the two sides, Yulo suddenly chuckled and put all his thoughts behind him. Since they can't be found for the time being, just wait for them to show up. Anyway, no matter how strong the opponent is, he has the confidence to at least escape unscathed. When they heard Yulo suddenly whispering to himself, the expressions of the 5 elders and all the strong men in the army changed drastically. My heart skipped a beat. Just be prepared to save your life without any reservation. However, Yulo made no move. Just snap. He snapped his fingers with his left hand. The 5 elders and others immediately retreated. After exiting far away, there was no response or any movement. Just when the 5 elders and others were confused, they did not dare to let down their guard at all. Boom. A transparent flame visible to the naked eye suddenly emerged from Yulo's fingertips. The invisible high temperature was even more intense than the fire in Qinglian's core. It swept across dozens of miles in an instant. This temperature, transparent flame? What's going on? The 5 elders and others felt as if they were in a hot hell, with the water in their bodies evaporating rapidly. First I was surprised. Quickly mobilize armament haki with all your strength to cover the whole body. This transparent flame, which had never appeared before, was obviously more terrifying than Yulo's previous green fire. But. Why doesn't Yulo move? Didn't you say you want to deal with them all first? After the 5 elders and others were puzzled, they slowly continued to distance themselves while being wary of Yulo's sudden attack. After all, Yulo has done this before. He just did it once and was caught off guard. However, they stared at Yulo, but Yulo still didn't move, but opened Shikai and released it. This transparent flame is called the Fallen Heart Flame. It is a flame form with a higher temperature than the previous green fire. But in addition to this, there is also a magical ability. When Yulo said this, he showed a harmless smile. That means you can invade the human heart without anyone noticing. The words fell. The 5 elders and others were immediately shocked. Quickly use the color of knowledge to perceive yourself. But it's a little late. When they sensed it, unknown energy had invaded and occupied the entire heart. Suffer it. The 5 elders and others were panicked. Such a high-temperature flame energy invaded the heart. If it explodes suddenly, even if you are lucky enough to survive, the person will be crippled. When their lives were in danger, everyone ignored Yulo and immediately mobilized the energy in their bodies. He began to frantically expel the fire in his heart and regain the power of life and death in his heart. Although the process is very difficult, as long as it is expelled from the heart, not to mention expelling it from the body, it is enough for them. At least they can avoid the fatal crisis caused by heart trauma. However, at this moment, the moment their energy comes to the heart and comes into contact with the high-temperature flame energy, it's as if it intensifies and catalyzes the fire in my heart. Boom. The blazing heat was released immediately. Aha! The 5 elders and others all let out a groan. Even though his whole body was covered with armament haki, he couldn't help but start to emit white smoke. It was as if a blazing flame was burning in their hearts. Not good. That's too late. The expressions of the 5 elders and others suddenly changed. Between panic, desperately mobilizing the energy in the body to resist the inner fire. But this is the fallen heart flame. No matter how hard they spare their efforts, the effect will still be minimal. Gudong. 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 Under severe high-temperature attack. Everyone's heartbeats are speeding up dramatically. A regular and powerful drum-like sound echoed in the air. As the drumming sound gets louder and louder, the temperature of the heart fire gets higher and higher. Almost instantly, the effort has swept through the 5 elders and others. This caused the white steam on their bodies to rise higher and higher, and even the dark armor covering their bodies began to gradually show gaps. Well, The first to be unable to hold on were the 18 CP0 leaders. The armed color of the whole body dissipated directly, and under the ultra-high temperature burning from the inside out, the screams that had just come out were already turned into ashes. Then it was the turn of Kong, Sangoku Garp Zephyr, 5 elders and others. Yulo just watched quietly, unmoved. Kong, 5 elders and others who resisted fiercely suddenly had hope in their eyes. Devil Fruit's abilities work wonders. Use Devil Fruit's ability quickly. Between growls, they were the first to turn around their physical strength and use it all to activate the Devil Fruit ability. Roar. The roars of various phantom beasts resounded throughout the sky. Kong's body quickly grew in size, turning directly into a ferocious and violent ape-like creature that was tens of meters tall. Astonishingly, it is the form of the phantom beast species, the Titan giant ape. However, this is far from over. The most shocking thing is 5 elders. Even Yulo smacked his tongue slightly when he saw it. The heritage of world government for more than 800 years is really not just a joke. Extremely arrogant and wealthy. 5 different yet powerful devil fruit energy waves rise from the 5 elders. He saw his body shape changing and energy sweeping through him. A black dragon hundreds of meters long. A demon with wings on its back, horns on its head, and a hook on its tail. A kui cow bathed in a sea of thunder and lightning. A giant immortal bird with blazing blue flames. A seraph, shrouded in holy light and with 6 paths wings of light behind him. It has 5 elders' own strongest trump card, 5 awakened phantom beasts and devil fruit abilities. And all of them are no weaker than those that appeared in the original work, such as top-notch fantasy beasts in vampire form and blue dragon form. Of course, Sengoku, who transformed into a golden Buddha, appeared next. After these people fully activate their devil fruit abilities, they directly expel the high-temperature inner fire raging in their bodies. Finally, it was completely suppressed, and there was no longer any fear for his life. Then I couldn't control Yulo's reaction. Kong, 5 elders, and Sengoku 7 people immediately assisted Garp, Zephyr, Quincy Admiral, the commander-in-chief of the army, Army Admiral, and others. At this point, the combat power of the top experts is guaranteed. For a while. Within a radius of dozens of miles around Yulo. Violent energy fluctuations of the phantom beast devil fruit are emitted everywhere. Although the 7 huge phantom beasts are far away from Yulo, they still maintain the previous siege formation. The small Yulo was surrounded by them, and his whole body was completely submerged in all kinds of energy. And Yulo is in an ocean formed by the intertwined energy in the sky. But he had no intention of stopping it at all. Because he is waiting. Wait for the hidden combat power of the world government to take action. At this moment, under the influence of various energy fluctuations. No matter who it is, the sight, hearing and color will be seriously affected. If it were him, then this moment would be the best time to take action. As expected. Yulo raised his eyebrows slightly, already sensing the color of what he saw. Even though his perception is somewhat affected, he can still be called the strongest perception in the world. The so-called top-level knowledge and color for him is just a title or description. With his strength, he has already cultivated his knowledge and skills to a level that is far beyond the top and beyond the limits of the world. Boom. 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 Suddenly, a sound broke through the air. In the ocean of energy around Yulo, 9 space cracks appeared suddenly and accurately. And it's gone in a blink of an eye. Yulo noticed it instantly, and surprise flashed in his eyes. This energy fluctuation? He was sure that I had taken action. In other words, it was I who took action and accurately sent the person who was attacking him to his vicinity. 9 figures flashed over, not only much faster than the 5 elders, Kong and others. Even the concealment and imperceptibility are not comparable to those of 5 elders and others. Yulo's eyes shone slightly, with a bit more fighting spirit. It seems that besides there are other masters in world government. It doesn't matter who it is. What matters is that combat finally feels a bit fun. Aha! At this time, Judeo's figure was already approaching. They are all covered in a scarlet evil spirit and blood. Attack Yulo from 9 different directions, all at angles that represent the body's Achilles heel. It's a killer move right from the start. Fight until death. I've been waiting for you for a long time, Yulo chuckled excitedly. Such a decisive attack, let alone its power. Just this aggressive attitude is much better than the timid 5 elders, Kong and others. Then let me test your strength. Yulo stepped down. Green fire suddenly spurted out, spinning straight up and flying into the sky. The wrath of the flame dragon. A giant green fire dragon hundreds of meters long was formed instantly. The huge body hovered to block Yulo's attack. Boom. During the collision, the dragon shuddered and dissipated. And the 9 figures were only knocked back dozens of steps before they joined forces to attack again. Don't say a word of nonsense. Along with the collision of the blow just now, the invisible impact force and airwaves generated also swept out in a rampant manner. Directly spread out the devil fruit energy ocean that submerged for dozens of miles. Mid-air, everything is clear again. The 5 elders have all recovered their knowledge and abilities. At the same time, the inner fire raging in the body has been almost suppressed. After sensing that 9 strange and powerful auras suddenly appeared on the scene, the 5 elders, Kong and others quickly looked around. They were immediately shocked. Who are they? You can actually fight to such an extent? I saw only 9 figures, 3 old men and 6 middle-aged people. Apart from their different appearances and clothing, they were all covered in an astonishing evil spirit with a strong smell of blood. And in the several confrontations between Heli and Yulo, he was only at a disadvantage, not defeated. Although they knew that Yulo was not serious, he was still strong enough. 5 elders and others were shocked. After all, there were more than 30 of them, and since Yulo was also not serious, they were completely defeated without any resistance. But these 9 people can compete with Yulo. Kong and others looked at the 5 elders involuntarily. If we were to say where in the world could there be such a powerful person? Then there is only world government. The situation that the 5 elders were hesitant to speak just now can exactly explain this. Far in the air, Yulo fought with 9 mysterious strong men who suddenly appeared. The ever-changing Qinglian Earth Heartfire, Biao shoots out the scarlet liquid lightning of Conqueror's entanglement and armed internal destruction. The attacks from both sides collided one after another in midair. The 10 figures also turned into streams of light and fought back and forth. It set off a large number of explosive airwaves that swept out. As for the 5 elders, Kong and other powerful players who were watching the battle, they had already forgotten about rocks. Everyone is full of shock. Although the battle situation cannot be seen with the naked eye, they can still see it clearly through the perception of sight, hearing and color. The 5 elders, in particular, maintain a semi-humanoid state. On those faces that should have been filled with the majesty of legendary fantasy beasts. At this moment, there were all expressions of surprise and astonishment. 9 people? Is it them? The 5 elders looked at each other. Although there is still some uncertainty at the moment, I think it should be close to 10. Upon seeing this, Kong and other powerful men in the army immediately made confused and curious sounds. Who are they? Look at the strength that far exceeds that of the top warriors on the sea. 5 elders took a deep breath and said 5 words in a deep voice. Knights of God. There was a bit of solemnity and fear in his tone. As for the direct bodyguard of Lord I Am at the back. But it just emerged in my heart, and there was no need to say it out. Even with the name, Knights of God, they made an exception and told them only after Kong and others spared no effort and performed well at a critical moment. When Kong and other powerful men in the army heard this, their spirits were all shaken, and they all felt shaken subconsciously. Knights of God. The knights in the name of God. Not only are they more numerous than the 5 elders, but they are also more powerful. It is indeed the hidden combat power of the world government, and its foundation of more than 800 years is truly unfathomable. After that, the 5 elders stopped talking, and Kong and others knew enough to ask no more questions. They are all understanding people, obviously. Such secrets are definitely something they would never have access to on a normal day. At this moment, the 5 elders can tell them the words, Knights of God, which is already a great honor. But they don't know. In fact, the 5 elders still know little about the Knights of God. Since I had only taken office a few days ago, I had only heard of his existence and name. Until the Knights of God appeared just now. They haven't really met each other yet. I originally thought that after this battle, when they personally deal with Yulo and meet Lord I Am, maybe you can face the other person head on with all the glory and dignity. As a result, he never expected to meet the 9 members of the Knights of God in such a shameless way. Although there is a reason why Yulo is too strong, it cannot cover up the fact that they are the worst 5 elders in history. Far in the air, Yulo and the 9 members of the Knights of God turned into 10 streams of light and fought back and forth. The fighting became increasingly fierce. Boom, boom, boom. The deafening explosions started one after another. Yulo just used Qinglian Earth Core fire to deal with it with ease. There is even a vague sense of gaining the upper hand. And the 9 knights who originally had absolute confidence and vowed to kill Yulo. But as time went by, he no longer had the calmness he had at the beginning. Ripples began to ripple deep in his calm heart. Damn it. I still underestimated Yulo. I didn't expect that he actually has such strength. This is a bit tricky. Our advantage is gone. Yes, the plan to catch him off guard failed. The 9 members of the Knights used special secrets of sound transmission to communicate with each other between their back and forth confrontations with Yulo. It can be heard that the tone has begun to become serious. The battle plan that was obviously prepared in advance was completely disrupted by Yulo at this moment. I thought that with the help of Lord Im's space fruit ability, and Yulo's being in such violent and chaotic energy fluctuations, they can approach Yulo silently without anyone noticing, and launch the most violent attack. You can gain an advantage right from the start and catch Yulo off guard. Then he took advantage of the victory and pursued it, not giving Yulo any chance to counterattack. The 5 elders who have awakened the ability of the Phantom Beast Devil Fruit, and Kong and others who can still be of some use. Use the fastest speed to suppress or even defeat Yulo. It should even at least fend off Yulo. However, the idea is good, but the reality is cruel. When the fight started, they discovered that things didn't go as planned at all. Don't think they can compete with Yulo continuously at this moment. These are all illusions. Only those who are actually fighting Yulo can deeply understand Yulo's terror. That calm and leisurely attitude can always offset their attacks just right every time. It's obvious that no care was taken with such exquisitely accurate controls. Not only that, the battle situation is also constantly changing. Sometimes Yulo retreats and they rush forward, sometimes they retreat and Yulo suppresses them strongly. But no matter how it changes, they are all led by the nose. All changes in the battle situation are dominated by Yulo, who seems to be weak. No. This deadlock must be broken. The minds of the 9 knights were spinning, and they were communicating quickly while fighting. You guys. How dare you get distracted while fighting me? This is not a wise move. But none of this can hide from Yulo's transcendent level of perception. Fire Punch. It seems like a simple move, but it explodes with amazing power. As Yulo's figure flashed, elemental fists continued to punch out. Boom. 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 Each punch fired out a 100-meter diameter Qinglian earth core fire, which rushed toward the 9 knights. 9 punches in a row, directly interrupting the thinking of the 9 knights in their tacitly coordinated formation. Because the Qinglian earth core fire was rushing like a sea of fire, even they didn't want to bear the high temperature head-on. If 9 people work together to resist a blow, it will be no problem. But it won't work if we resist separately. Yulo, don't be too arrogant. Among the 9 knights, the leader, the old man whose hair and beard formed the shape of a moon, was particularly displeased. I am the commander of the Knights of God, Figaland Garen Saint. And you, Yulo, are just a murderer. You will never be allowed to be so unbridled in the Holy Land. Figaland Galen Saint had a determined look on his face. The other 8 people saw the same thing. It seems that some kind of decision has been made. Any one of them alone would be unable to withstand Yulo's fire punch with Qinglian's earth core fire. Of course, 9 people working together can do it, but that's in the case of 1 blow. Now it's just 9 strikes, even if the 9 people work together, they can't stop it. But since they dared to show up to fight Yulo at this moment, they naturally expected that Yulo would be stronger. They already have a plan to deal with this. Blood is burning. Facing the overwhelming green fire, it was like a hot hell that could burn them to ashes at any time. The 9 members of the Knights of God, including Saint Figaland Garen, all shouted loudly at almost the same time. The aura on his body increased at a clearly visible speed. The muscles, blood vessels, and bones all over the body are bulging. Boom. A thunderous voice sounded. This is the sound coming from the rapid flow of blood in their bodies. Like a river that never stops flowing, a moment of effort. The aura of the Holy 9 Figaland Garen soared into the sky. Scarlet blood mist lingered around them. That's what it looks like. From Yulo's perspective, he could clearly sense that the momentum and aura of the 9 members of the Knights of God were 2 or 3 times stronger than before after being amplified. In response, the corners of Yulo's mouth turned up with interest. There was no surprise at all. Because I am hiding in the dark, Figaland Garen Saint and others are not idiots either. With the strength he has shown, he would not think that he could be eliminated just by relying on the Knights of God at this level. He must have a trump card and a backup plan. Not even in Yulo's opinion. After all, this is world government. It has been inherited for more than 800 years, and its heritage is not something to be built on. But that's fine. Couldn't shrink away. He felt that his opponent was too weak and the battle was boring. Maybe this would make it a little more serious and enjoyable. Just when Yulo was having these thoughts, the Holy 9 Figaland Garen have completed the increase in strength in a matter of seconds. The scarlet blood mist surrounding them caused their momentum to change. The determined murderous intent on his face and eyes was tinged with bloodlust. Facing the sea of blue fire so close at hand, all 9 of them opened their arms at the same time. Then with a strong force, he slapped forward. With the blessing of a force that was 2 or 3 times stronger than before, a violent wind flow was directly set off. Boom. As their hands clapped together in front of them, the blue sea of fire was instantly blown away. Yulo's blow was neutralized. The 9 members of the Knights of God were safe and sound. Yulo appeared in their sight again, still maintaining the formation surrounding it. 6 King's Spear. Just when Yulo's body appeared, the hands of the 9 saints of Figaland Garen, which were clapped in front of him, changed rapidly. Make a fist. Then a huge force surged out. Boom. 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 Yulo was besieged from all directions. Ha 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 ha. Yulo's clothes were fluttering, his black hair was flying, and he let out a wild laugh. A move of Flame Dragon's wrath was unleashed. The green fire giant circled upwards again. The blazing heat began to spread. However, this time the shockwave fired by the Holy Nine Figaland Garen was quite powerful, indeed far stronger than the previous attacks. It easily tore through the invisible heat and hit the body of the green fire dragon directly. Green fire explodes. The impact energy bursts out. The Holy Nine Figaland Garen of the Knights of God looked at him calmly with a bit of confidence in his eyes. Yulo's always invincible green fire was the first to collapse this time. And only half of the 9 shockwaves they fired dissipated. The rest continue to attack Yulo. This moment is so close. If nothing unexpected happens in the next moment, they will all hit Yulo. But this is Yulo. If it were anyone else, let alone counterattack, they wouldn't even be able to dodge. But it just happened to be Yulo. The accident happened as it should. Yulo directly transformed into elements and soared into the sky, and at the same time his arrogant voice sounded in the air. The increase in secret skills is very strong. You are already worthy of my seriousness, faced with Yulo's sudden elemental disappearance. The pupils of the 9 saints of Figaland Garen shrank. The perception of sight, hearing and color is fully open. I became nervous and alert. Yulo's disappearance was not surprising to them at all, it was something they expected. The reason why I quickly became solemn was purely because of Yulo's words. How serious are you? Just 5 simple words, but after their strength increased, they subconsciously felt invisible pressure. Because this is the most evil monster genius ever seen on the sea. Even Lord I Am said it himself, and he had to admit that his talent was terrifying. And from the battle just now, we can see that its strength is unfathomable. No one knows how much Yulo has exerted his strength and how much strength he has hidden. It is a matter of life and death for themselves and the world government. There is no room for any contempt or relaxation on their part. The 9 members of the Knights including Saint Figaland Garen suddenly became energetic. He directly crushed the air under his feet and chased Yulo at a speed several times faster. We can no longer let Yulo lead them by the nose. They must control the tempo of the battle. Yulo. Where to go? The Holy Nine Figaland Garen had arrived at Yulo's position in an instant. The 9 shockwaves that were so fast that they were just about to collide. They were almost crossing. Yulo's voice came from above. It's still a little slow, One Great Brahma. A flash of green fire emerged and transformed into Yulo. I saw him stepping down. Qinglian's inner fire spread rapidly. In the blink of an eye, the sky and the sun were covered. Covering a radius of several hundred meters. The scorching airwaves were covering their heads, and Figaland Garen and the others used their armed colors to isolate them. His eyes were full of determination. Flush it away. Mobilize abundant strength to prepare to directly knock away the layer of green fire above your head. But at this moment, the green fire that spread to a diameter of 500 meters suddenly changed its shape. After a burst of convergence and transformation, the character, Wan, fell down. It was like a huge mountain falling down, covering the heads of the 9 saints of Figaland Garen. This caused their expressions to change slightly. Compressed high-temperature green fire energy. Different from the power of the cyan flame simply released, it mainly comes from the high-temperature burning of the cyan fire and the flexible use of different forms. This compressed green fire has a higher temperature based on its original power, and it also has an explosive effect. And it becomes difficult to be defeated and dissipated. Boom. One Great Brahma falls. At this time, the 9 shockwaves also collided. Strong energy and waves surged in all directions. However, under the pressure of Brahma, it was completely scattered. Can't make any waves at all. The 9 saints of Figaland Garen saw this scene, and were surprised by the power of this attack, but at the same time they did not shrink back in fear. They were just going to flush it away. Yulo is strong. But they are not who they were before. They are confident they can defeat this move. Let him see my current strength. The 9 saints of Figaland Garen used all their strength to cover their bodies with their armed colors. Rendered by the scarlet blood mist all around, the armed color has a black and reddish luster. They directly faced Yulo's blow with their bodies soaring into the sky. Great Brahma. The black and red armament hockey covers the majestic and powerful bodies of the 9 Knights of God. After the secret technique, the increase of chi and blood burning, there are also powerful moves that they have cultivated. The 9 saints of Figaland Garen face the great Brahma above their heads. No matter in terms of momentum or deep in heart, there is no weakness at all. As the unswerving words of Figaland Garin Shang fell, the 9 members of the Knights of God officially began their counterattack. Sword of Qi and Blood. Light drinks sounded from the 9 people. Above, Yulo was immediately noticed. Use sword skills? Who gave you the courage? No one on the sea knows his name. Qing Yan Sword God. In the Battle of the Valley of the Gods, he demonstrated a level of swordsmanship that far surpassed that of top swordsmen and had not been seen for more than 800 years. The Supreme Swordsman. The extremely sharp sword intent is enough to turn into substance. Impact reality. He doesn't even need to launch sword energy slashing attacks. The actual sword intent alone is sharp enough to cut through mountains. With such a strong swordsmanship cultivation level, he can be called the strongest swordsmanship practitioner in the history of Dahai. To use swordsmanship in front of him, isn't it like using a sword in front of Guangdong? Although the foundation of world government is strong, Yulo is not arrogant. In terms of swordsmanship, he didn't think anyone could surpass him. Faced with Yulo's self-confidence, Figaland Garinshang didn't take it seriously. Yulo was so powerful that he didn't expect to defeat him with this move. This is just one of the powerful moves they have at their disposal. Just to break away Yulo's offensive, it's just Brahma. Aha! 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 As the 9 of them launched their moves. The scarlet blood mist lingering around them. That is the power of Qi and blood that overflows. It started to surge rapidly, converging towards their heads. 9 sword-tip-shaped blades of energy and blood were condensed. Because the originally loose scarlet blood mist was solidified into a point. The power of Qi and blood in the 9 saints of Figaland Garin has actually become a bit stronger. But if that's the case, the so-called sword of Qi and blood is just an illusion and has no actual swordsmanship. Yulo frowned slightly, feeling puzzled. This doesn't seem like a swordsmanship. Is it still some kind of secret technique unique to world government? As expected. Just when he had the idea, the Holy 9 Figaland Garin changed again. I saw armament hockey wrapping around my body, integrated into the 9 blades of energy and blood. Time. The colors change. Scarlet turns to black-red. That's the color of armament hockey, and that's not the point. The important thing is the fusion of the weapon color and the blood blade. Some kind of qualitative change has actually occurred. And it's a change for the better. It's like a transformation. It actually merged directly into a new energy. The fluctuations emanating from it are the particularly sharp sword intent. And it also carries a sense of heaviness. This special energy fluctuation, in terms of sword intent alone, has surpassed the likes of Golden Lion. If coupled with that thick energy fluctuation, when the two are superimposed, they are far more powerful than Golden Lion and others. The 9 saints of Figaland Garin have 9 thick and sharp blades of blood on their heads. It directly collided with the swastika formed by the Qinglian earth core fire covering a range of 500 meters. Almost instantly, boom! There was a loud noise. The compressed Qinglian earth core fire was triggered. They all exploded in midair. The extremely blazing green fire carries the explosive impact. It burned and devoured in all directions. The figures of the Holy 9 Figaland Garin were instantly submerged. Disappear. The hot air wave swept thousands of meters in radius. Yulo's eyes were filled with interest as he sensed everything. The corners of his mouth curled up. I see. It seems that my guess was correct. Just as he expected. This is some kind of secret skill, not swordsmanship at all. It felt like the real sword intent. It's just a magical application technique produced by the weapon color and the blood blade, under the influence of the subtle conquerors. What is fake, no matter how similar it is, it will never be real. However, although the sword intention is fake, the strong impact of Qi and blood, as well as the sharp power of the weapon, these are genuine. This move, Sword of Qi and Blood, is indeed very powerful. Especially since this is the combined force of 9 people, its power has increased exponentially. Ahahaha. Yulo, did you find out? At this time, the blue energy clouds produced by the explosion of green fire stretched nearly a kilometer below. The angry shout of Saint Figaland Garin was heard. It can be heard that it was not affected at all. On the contrary, there is a sense of showing off and pride that Yulo discovered the secret of his moves. Boom. 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 The green flame energy layer surged and was directly penetrated by 9 huge loopholes. 9 members of the Knights of God rushed out with blood swords on their heads. His momentum was not reduced at all, and he launched a pincer attack on Yulo. Not taking any time to breathe. Just launch a fierce attack. The sword of energy and blood above their heads was actually taken down by them. Hold it in your hand and become one with the entire arm. The power of chi and blood, armament hockey. Visible to the naked eye, the sword of chi and blood is being continuously blessed from all parts of the body. In an instant, the Saint Nine of Figaland Garen exuded an aura and sword intent that surpassed that of the top swordsman. Although it is still not as good as Yulo, it feels like it is approaching Yulo. It's too late to find out now. Meaningless. Suffer death. In an instant, 9 people were approaching Yulo. Arriving near Yulo, the offensive roared decisively. Boom. There was a harsh blast of wind. The swords of chi and blood in the hands of the 9 people stabbed and slashed down one after another. It's just a move that I cherish very much. I don't like it, young master. For the ostentatious and proud tone of Figaland Galen's saint. And the world government's little-bellied behavior. Yulo doesn't have any good feelings at all. Little tricks. Try who lives and who dies. It's not something that can be solved by simply dying. Facing the joint attack of the Knights of God. Yulo's face was stern, and his right hand slowly rested on the handle of the knife at his waist. The strongest heat type Zanpakuto, Ryujin Jaka. And it's also the alien fire version. This scene made the 9 saints of Figaland Garen suddenly shrink their pupils. Chang Yan Sword God. The strongest one is the blue flame. Of course, now there's a translucent color flame. And the strongest swordsmanship in the realm of supreme swordsmen. Prior to this, Yulo had only used 2 fire abilities. And now, he's going to draw his sword. Click. Yulo's left thumb gently touched the sword. There was a sudden movement. This is the sound of the scabbard and sword being separated. The Holy 9 Figaland Garen are also those of the Grandmaster sword. His ears moved slightly, and he heard clearly. His eyes were fixed. However, Yulo's speed of drawing the sword was leisurely. This allowed the 9 of them to seize the opportunity instantly. No matter how Yulo responds, before the attack succeeds. As long as the knife is not pulled out, it is in their favor. Boom. 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 The figure of the Holy 9 Figaland Garen crashed through the air along the way, causing a burst of crazy airflow. Come around Yulo and besiege him. He directly used the fused weapon color in his hand and wrapped it around Conqueror's bloodsword, and slashed it towards Yulo at a very fast speed. Stab. Scarlet liquid lightning shot out, danced wildly around Yulo, and then directly engulfed Yulo. The void vibrated with the roaring sound. The combined attack of the 9 saints of Figaland Garen was like 9 high-speed moving mountains, attacking Yulo from all sides. With a terrifying momentum that threatens to crush it into powder. Ha 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 ha. Yulo. You will be seriously injured even if you don't die from this blow. The 9 saints Figaland Garen all had joy in their eyes, and their aura was visibly swelling. Can't blame anyone. I only have myself to blame. He could have quickly drawn his sword to fight back, but he had to pretend to be nonchalant. The end result was that they seized the opportunity and it was too late to draw his sword to deal with it. He could only force the blow head on. The power of this blow is enhanced by the secret technique, Sword of Chi and Blood, and the weapon color, Conquerors. The Holy 9 of Figaland Garen are full of confidence. They knew the power of the 9-person attack. With Yulo's cyan flame alone, even with the translucent flame, Yulo would never be safe. Hey. I said, are you too confident? At this time, Yulo's words sounded, and there was no emotion. He was still as indifferent as before, as if such an offensive could not attract his attention. However, in the eyes of the Holy 9 Figaland Garen, they felt that Yulo was pretending to be calm. It's about time, Yulo. You'd better block this blow first. Yulo shook his head slightly. It was just the first time for him to use Ryujin Jaka. When he drew the sword, he heard Ryujin Jaka's impatience and was comforted a little. How could it be that he was careless in the eyes of the 9 saints Figaland Garen? Still experienced too few battles, even with the support of world government background, he has developed an extremely powerful strength. After all, he is still pampered, hiding behind the scenes for a long time, and lacks combat thinking and experience. This is your biggest weakness. If Golden Lion Shiki, Nugate and others had such strength, they would never make such mistakes and would have stronger combat power. In the flash of lightning, Yulo sighed in his heart. This further strengthened his idea of overthrowing the world government. Fujao. He didn't even perform a shikai on Ryujin Jaka. It was just a sword drawing slash. Just suddenly. The sword is unsheathed and exposed to the sun. Yulo's weapon colors and conquerors, which he hasn't used in a long time, are wrapped around it. Scandium. A loud and long chant. The supreme sword intention turned into substance and soared into the sky. The 9 slashes of the sword of energy and blood suddenly shattered. Nani. The 9 saints of Figaland Garen felt extremely powerful in an instant, and the sword intent of Wu kept coming towards them. Before they could escape, they had no choice but to release conquerors to resist the sword intent that could pierce their will. However, Buzz, in front of Yulo's supreme sword intention. Their conquerors had just emerged from their bodies, as if they had encountered a natural enemy. As if he had been hit hard, he became sluggish and shrank back in fear. Well, the 9 saints of Figaland Garen all let out a muffled groan. His eyes suddenly became bloodshot, and a harsh buzzing sound echoed in his ears. Even the vision in front of him became blurry. Everything becomes several layers of ghosting. Suddenly, they were caught off guard. There are 9 super strong men whose strength far exceeds that of the top strong men. He actually fell into a daze. Deep down in their hearts, they were all horrified by Yulo's sword power. At the same time, all the emotions were turned on, and the hair on his body exploded. Because in this case, even if it is just a moment of trance, Yulo's counterattack was enough to kill them. Not to mention being so close. It's almost like a bad situation with the door wide open, waiting to be slaughtered by Yulo. They had a tacit understanding with each other, and they immediately chose to escape quickly. Aha! 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 The figure flashed rapidly. The harsh buzzing gradually subsided, and the vision in front of him became clearer. The negative state of discomfort completely subsided. However, when their vision clears, but he was horrified to find that his eyes were covered by a huge green sword light. The green sword light that was close at hand emitted energy fluctuations that made them suffocate. Not good. Figaland Galen's pupils shrank suddenly. Then he just used all his strength to speed up and escape. He roared loudly at the same time, retreat. What awaited him was a series of screams and heartbreaking pain. Boom. 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 All 9 members of the Knights of God were severely chopped and flew away. Boom. They were in an extremely horrified mood, and the 5 elders and others in the distance looked at them with extremely horrified eyes. Blood spilled in the air like broken jade beads. There is a scar on the body that is deep enough to show the bone. It was blasted into the ground in the distance. Create a pit 100 meters deep. And Yulo's green sword light continued to sweep away in all directions like ripples. Until it disappears into the horizon. The supreme sword intent and power he carried actually scattered the clouds high in the sky at the same time. There was a deathly silence in the whole place. The 5 elders and others originally thought that the 9 Knights of God had a good chance of winning. They were all stunned in place, can't say a word. The Holy 9 Figaland Garen lie in the pit. Wow. He kept vomiting blood in his mouth, and the wounds were bleeding. Their bodies were shot straight down from the air by the huge force, as if they were about to fall apart. In addition, the scarred area seemed to be being corroded by Yulo's supreme sword intent. The severe pain is heart-piercing, even reaching into the bone marrow and brain. For a time, the 9 people were unable to move. Like a dying person. The 5 elders, Marine and others in the distance were all dumbfounded. Without personal experience like the Knights of God, they couldn't even imagine what happened. Figaland, Garinshang and others who originally seemed to be capable of fighting Yulo were suddenly seriously injured. Although their knowledge and appearance are all top-notch in the world, it is precisely because of this that their fear of Yulo is even deeper. Everyone was shocked by Yulo's green sword light just now. It's so fast. It's almost ultimate. Just one sword draw was already many times faster than the sword Yulo used to stop them during the battle in the Valley of Gods. Even their top-level knowledge, and color perception are somewhat insufficient. Marines Kong, Sengoku Garp and others have a premonition. If it had been them, they would have been cut into 2 pieces on the spot. The 5 elders were also so worried that their chests rose and fell violently. Suddenly, Yulo seemed to feel something, and glanced here with indifferent eyes. The 5 elders and others instantly froze in place. The cold air that shot straight up from the soles of my feet was as if the Shinigami was staring at me. 5 elders. But at this moment, a hoarse roar came from the dead silence. At the same time, it attracted the attention of Yulo and 5 elders. Huh. Yulo let out a light sigh. He looked towards Figaland Garen Saint who roared. He was a little curious about how Saint Figaland Garen regained some strength so quickly. According to his perception and calculation, this shouldn't be the case. 5 elders and others were also shocked and woke up. Hearing the cry of Saint Figeland Galen, he quickly looked over. I saw Figeland Garen Saint, who was still seriously injured and unable to move just a second ago. At this moment, he stood up tremblingly. The scarlet blood mist that had been dispersed by Yulo once again surrounded him. And under the bloody and ferocious scar on his chest, from inside the forest's white bones, traces of blood mist continued to pour out. It was like a large number of blood snakes swimming around and burrowed into the flesh on both sides. It's like it contains some kind of magical energy, which directly speeds up wound healing. In such a short period of time, the scar on Figeland Garen's chest was able to stop bleeding. It's the effect of burning chi and blood. This scene fell into the eyes of the 5 elders, and they burst into joy. Immerse yourself in Yulo's coercion and power. They actually ignored this for a while. The magical effect of the secret art of burning chi and blood. As long as the physical strength is not exhausted, the blood is not exhausted, the life does not come to an end, the effect of the secret technique does not exceed the time limit. So no matter how much trauma you suffer, you can complete the recovery of the wound in a very short time. Although it cannot fully heal, it can return to its uninjured state. But it can also stop the blood and temporarily numb the pain without affecting the performance of strength. In this case, unless Yulo can kill everyone in one hit. Otherwise they still have a chance. There is still hope for a comeback. At this time, Yulo also discovered the reason why Figeland Garen Saint recovered so quickly through his perception of sight, hearing, and color. It wasn't that his Fu-Zan attack wasn't strong enough, and it didn't cause serious damage to Figeland Garen Sheng and others. But it was because of the secret technique of chi and blood burning launched by Figeland Garen Saint and others at the very beginning. It's really troublesome. Although Yulo was a little surprised, he still had to admit it. The effect of that secret technique, chi and blood burning, exceeded his expectations. Not only can the combat power be greatly enhanced in a short period of time, but it can also speed up recovery to this extent. In a way, the side effects of esotericism aside, this amazing effect is no less than the ability of the top phantom beast devil fruit. That's when Yulo was surprised by the effect of the secret technique. The other 8 members of the Knights of God are also the same as Saint Figeland Garen. He quickly stabilized the scar on his chest and stood up staggeringly. This time they did not take action rashly and charged alone to fight Yulo. Instead, he turned his attention to the 5 elders and others who had been watching the battle in the distance. You 5 losers. How long are you going to stand by and watch? As 5 elders, do you just watch the enemy act cruelly? Figeland Galen Saint was wary of Yulo while questioning the 5 elders and others very dissatisfied. The same goes for the other 8 people, with angry eyes filled with questions. In fact, at the beginning, they had no intention of asking 5 elders to help. Even though they thought they could deal with Yulo, there was no chance for the 5 elders to take action. Because although they and the 5 elders are of the same race, they also have a competitive relationship. The 5 elders were in trouble, and when they came out, they were dealt with lightly. Not only will he be compared to 5 elders, but he will also get more recognition and respect from that adult. But who would have expected that Yulo's strength is not at the same level as theirs? Although they used their trump cards one after another, they still couldn't shake Yulo in the slightest. Instead, he ended up being seriously injured. Even with the blessing of secret techniques, the strength will be affected to some extent. The 5 elders witnessed all this. Maybe 5 elders never had such an idea. But they don't think so. Rather than just them being beaten, it would be better for them all to be beaten together. Maybe it's possible to defeat Yulo. The 5 elders were all startled when they heard this. Then he lowered his head deeply, unable to refute what he just said. It's not that they feel ashamed or ashamed of it. But these are indeed facts. Since the appearance of the Knights of God, as fully awakened top phantom beasts with demon fruit power, they really have no choice to continue participating in the war. Although most of this is due to the continuous attacks between Yulo and the Knights of God. There was no suitable time for them to intervene in the war. But now is not the time to worry about this, and you. Everyone join us in taking action. Saint Figeland Garen's cold and angry eyes were directed at the Marines again. The commanding tone revealed no doubt. Kong, Garp and other Marines all had ugly expressions. It's not that they don't dare to take action. Even though Yulo is powerful, they will not hesitate when they are needed. Mainly the tone of Figeland Galen Saint. It makes them seem like they are standing by and reaping the benefits. Everyone in Marine looked at the 5 elders before approaching their immediate boss. As long as the 5 elders give the order, they all take action immediately. On the half-human, half-beast body, strong phantom beast power surges. The 5 elders took a deep breath, their eyes full of determination. Everyone joins the fight, as 5 elders' firm words fell to the ground. Kong, Sengoku and Garp, as well as Field Marshal, Admiral and others, all became serious. They looked at each other, their eyes full of solemnity and the same determination as the 5 elders. When things have developed to this point, there is no room for recovery. These people have long been tied to the world government's chariot. Either Yulo dies or they die. There will be no third ending. There will also be no situation where Yulo lets them go, or they let Yulo go. Fight until death. So no matter what, it was inevitable that they would take action. Even if he was afraid after seeing Yulo's super strength, he had to bear it. Hiss. Who? Everyone in the 5 elders and Marine Army took a deep breath, adjusted their state, and tried their best to suppress their fear of Yulo. Being timid before fighting is a taboo. Fortunately, they are all top-notch warriors with excellent psychological quality. They can put their fear behind them in almost a moment. What replaced it was an indomitable fighting spirit. They have no choice. It no longer matters to them how strong Yulo is. Because no matter how hard you fight, it's inevitable. We can only try to forget Yulo's strength and treat the opponent as an unprecedentedly powerful enemy. Above the devastated Holy Land, on the empty battlefield in midair. In addition to the momentum of Yulo and the Knights of God, the momentum of the 5 elders and the Marine Army soared. Although their individual auras are relatively weak, they cannot hold up in large numbers. When nearly 20 auras are intertwined, they are enough to stand shoulder to shoulder with Saint Figaland Garin, the strongest among the Knights of God. And the reaction of the 9 Knights of God when they saw the 5 elders in the Marine Army. He snorted coldly and his expression softened a bit. It can be seen that the response to 5 elders and others is quite satisfactory. After all, at this point, not only did they appear with determination to win, but they were brutally tortured by Yulo in front of everyone in the 5 elders, and their faces were disgraced. It also means whether we can turn defeat into victory in the subsequent battle and completely solve this key and most important problem for Yulo. Now that everyone in 5 elders is willing to take action together, the probability of winning will naturally increase greatly. Even compared to their strength, the 5 elders and others together are only equivalent to one more person. But this person may be able to relieve their pressure to a great extent. And just when all of them were feeling a little less pressure to increase their own strength. Yulo's words sounded, "Mob. It doesn't matter how many people there are, it won't change the outcome." These words were full of naked ridicule and disdain. And his tone was already a little impatient. To be honest, these people are too weak. I originally thought it would make him a little more happy, but it turned out that he was overthinking it. After the strength of these people has been increased by secret techniques, no matter how strong they are still far behind him. Although joining forces can make him a little more serious, there are still too many people to concentrate their power. Or in other words, unable to concentrate the power on one person. And the result of this situation is that no matter how perfect the cooperation between these people is, no matter how perfect they are, it cannot achieve the effect of focusing on one person. The combined offensive was indeed powerful enough to make him take it seriously. But the defense is quite poor. Facing his indifference, it is almost impossible to avoid and can only resist the attack. Is it possible to spread the power equally to everyone? The answer is of course no, each of them has to bear the power of Yulo's offensive. But when the attack can be combined, the defense cannot be divided evenly. With the extremely fragile defense of these people, it is almost impossible to withstand Yulo's attack. As long as he is attacked, he will at least be seriously injured. This is just the result of Yulo's seriousness. If he had been more serious and even used all his strength to attack, these people would have been wiped out. With such strength, they are really weak, but Yulo still thinks highly of them. Now, after the battle just now, Yulo has an accurate assessment of his own strength and the strength of the Knights of God after comparison. He is strong. Figaland Galen Saint and others are too weak. It was impossible for him to enjoy himself to the fullest, and even a little seriousness was something Figaland Garin Saint and others couldn't bear. Perhaps only I am, who is hiding in the dark and has not yet taken action, can be his opponent. Hateful. Hearing Yulo's extremely arrogant and impatient words, Figaland Galen Saint, 5 elders and others looked gloomy, and they all dared to be angry but dared not speak. They heard the impatience in Yulo's voice, and their eyes were fixed on Yulo. Yulo's impatience was enough for them to take it seriously. No one knows whether Yulo will suddenly launch a more powerful attack. So you can only increase your vigilance in this way. And Yulo's actions seem to be verifying their ideas. The green lotus earth heartfire swayed gently on the blade. With Yulo's whisper, he landed. Everything in the world turns to ashes, Ryujin Jaka. Suddenly it started to rise wildly, boom, boom, boom. Just like a small flame suddenly evolved into a fierce burning fire. Make bursts of roaring sounds. Qinglian's earth core fire also seems to have really evolved. From the original docility, he transformed directly into a ferocious beast. The temperature doubled in the moments after Shikai. After the invisible sweep, it was like a purgatory descending. The surrounding moisture instantly turned into thick steam. Even the space visible to the naked eye is distorted. Even the magma under the Holy Nine Figaland Garen actually became boiling. It keeps bubbling like boiling water, and the temperature is rising at the same time. Yulo's whispers and movements, the burst of green fire on the blade, and this series of reactions. The 9 members of the Knights, the 5 elders and others were shocked. They immediately sensed the ultra-high temperature and energy fluctuations after the green fire surged. My scalp was numb and my face was trembling. Obviously their strength has been enhanced, but it still can't change that when facing Yulo, it's like facing a natural chasm. That unspeakable suffocating throbbing was something they couldn't suppress no matter how hard they tried. Not good. We can't let Yulo take action, we must seize the opportunity. The leader, Figaland Galen Shang, made a prompt decision and could see Yulo's thoughts and emotions at a glance. This was because he was impatient with them and had lost interest in the battle. It was obvious that he wanted to take the initiative and end the battle quickly. Otherwise, the aura power and energy fluctuations would not have suddenly doubled. This is all about finishing them off with a wave of violence. No, absolutely not. Can't let this happen. Saint Figaland Galen looked gloomy. He knew exactly why they could barely compete with Yulo. It's just that Yulo never takes the initiative to attack. Instead, he waited for them to attack first, and then responded and counterattacked. Even so, they couldn't handle it, let alone Yulo, who took the initiative and started a strong attack regardless of everything. Basically, as long as they're hit, they will immediately lose the ability to fight. Therefore, Yulo cannot be allowed to take the lead in attacking, it must be their side, otherwise, they will not even be able to fight. Why are you hesitating? Give it all to Lousy. In the flash of lightning, Saint Figaland Galen shouted. The lava burst and the figure rose into the sky, followed closely by the other 8 members of the Knights. Before Yulo raised his sword, he came around in an instant. When the 5 elders and marine army saw this, they could only rush forward with their scalps on their shoulders. Form a position outside the 9 knights. A double siege formation was formed against Yulo. In order to take action before Yulo, maintain the only advantage of starting first. Sword of Chi and Blood. The 9 saints of Figaland Garen gathered their energy and blood without any reservation, and once again formed the Scarlet Blood and Energy Sword. Armament Hockey, Conqueror's Hockey, Sword Chi, all are blessed on it. 9 Chi blood blades exuding a powerful aura attacked Yulo at the same time. Boom. 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 The violent airflow was chaotic, and the roaring sounds were like muffled thunder, deafening. The Holy Nine of Figaland Garen endured the violent winds unleashed by them, as well as the terrifying heat in the violent winds. The temperature had doubled, and even with armed protection, they still felt burning pain. But there is no way. He could only grit his teeth and send the attack in front of Yulo. Of course they know that with Yulo's current strength, this offensive will have no effect. They also had no intention of threatening Yulo. Their purpose is very clear, that is, not to allow Yulo to launch an attack. At the same time, the 5 elders and marine army on the periphery also had a clear insight into the knights' thoughts. They all took action together and launched a long-range offensive, coordinating the 9 members of the knights and trying to affect Yulo as much as possible. The Golden Giant Buddha Shockwave, the sharp flying sword energy slash, the air cannon like an air column, and the Conqueror's entwining airstrike. There are also 5 elders, Black Dragon, Kui Niu, Demon, Phoenix, Seraph, 5 Phantom Beast species ability users. 5 ability rays containing rich and powerful power of fantasy beasts were erupted. The colorful Madara is full of various offensives, and the power of them all together is also impressive. They gathered towards Yulo from all directions and roared away. Including the 9 members of the Knights, there are 10 offensives in total that are powerful enough to destroy the island. Like destroying the world, the space shook violently, and they all rushed towards Yulo. The scene at this moment is as if the world is beginning to be destroyed from the outside in, and the place where it finally collapses completely is Yulo. What Yulo faces is the power of one person to resist the destructive power of the world. In the eyes of Figaland Garen Saint, 5 elders and others, this is so difficult that it is as difficult as climbing to the sky. But who is Yulo? At this moment, he is holding Ryujin Jaka and the blessing of Qinglian Earth Heartfire, which cannot be measured by common sense. In the overwhelming offensive, which almost completely submerged him, exuding energy fluctuations that destroyed the world, Yulo stood tall and motionless. Although his stature is small, his scornful aura cannot even be concealed by the stormy waves. As fragile as before, Yulo's eyes were indifferent, as if these terrifying offensives were nothing in his eyes. As he whispered softly, the impatience in his tone became more intense. In his eyes, although the energy fluctuations of these offensives are powerful, they are superficial. He has lost interest in continuing to fight back. This battle has to end. Shunpo. Suddenly, the built-in teleportation move from Ryujin Jaka was activated. In full view of everyone, under the helpless gazes of Figaland Garen Saint, 5 elders and others, Yulo's figure disappeared. No warning, not even any fluctuations. Figaland Galen Saint and others did not react at all to what they saw. He didn't react until Yulo disappeared from sight. What? Yulo disappeared? Without exception. They were all extremely shocked. After that, uneasiness followed and filled my heart. They are not idiots and can react naturally. They disappeared in an instant without even noticing it. This is the true speed of Yulo. This means that their previous guesses are likely to come true, and Yulo no longer wants to continue playing with them. Figaland Galen Saint, 5 elders and others could not help but break out in cold sweat. Even though it was cold from head to toe, he still kept his eyes open, trying to catch a glimpse of Yulo's aura. Although they knew it was of no use, they still did it to gain peace of mind. At this time, Shi Dao's terrorist offensive lost its target. As usual, they collided at Yulo's original location. After the entanglement of various energies such as sword energy, weapon color, and the power of fantasy beasts, violent explosions occurred. Earth-shaking, overwhelming. Figaland Galen Saint, 5 elders and others quickly retreated, with dissatisfied and uneasy expressions on their faces. The less they can find Yulo, the more afraid they become, and even feel suffocated. It was as if a pair of invisible hands were strangling his throat. Leave them breathless. Extremely depressing. Hot hell. Suddenly, there was a roar. Yulo's whispers spread again. Even though it was covered up by the earth-shattering rumblings, Figaland Garen Sheng and others still heard it keenly. This is all thanks to their full awareness at all times. So what if I just heard it? Figaland Galen Saint, 5 elders and others were surprised at first. Looking in the direction of the sound, I found that Yulo was already 10 miles away. It can no longer be seen with the naked eye and can only be perceived through sight, hearing and color. They subconsciously doubted. Why did Yulo suddenly disappear and retreat so far away? Just as their thoughts were racing between lightning and flint, the terrifying high-temperature energy fluctuations that suddenly appeared below made Figaland Garen Sheng, 5 elders and others suddenly horrified. Yulo's move contains a killer move. Boom, boom, boom. One after another, blue fire pillars, reaching a diameter of 100 meters, rose into the sky from below them. They formed an encircling formation, confining all of them. This is to melt them all in one move, between heaven and earth. 18 cyan fire pillars shot straight into the sky, each with a diameter of 100 meters. Like a pillar connecting heaven and earth. This scene alone made Figaland Garen Sheng, 5 elders and others subconsciously dazzled. Because everything happened without any warning, there was no response from their sight, hearing, color, and perception. 18 blue fire pillars with a diameter of 100 meters have rushed into the clouds high in the sky from below. And a siege formation with a diameter of 10 miles was formed, restricting all their retreat routes. And Yulo happens to be 10 miles away. What's more important is that the 18 blue fire pillar swords, although they are far apart, their auras seem to be connected together. The superimposed temperature reached the ultimate level, and even the space between the fire pillars was burned and distorted. In the eyes of Saint Figaland Garen, 5 elders and others, the world is like a whirlpool. The range of sight, hearing, and color perception is also limited to the siege formation. It's like a large formation formed by the skyfire. Completely sealed them in. At this moment, the 5 elders and others were the first to change their expressions, and they all began to panic. Not good. Is this a killer move? Yulo is serious. Their mood at this moment can be said to have hit rock bottom, because the bottom is simply like an abyss. Not long ago, the Knights of God fought with Yulo for such a long time, but they never saw Yulo perform any earth-shattering powerful moves. Why is it their turn? They just took action and haven't played around yet. It is directly a killing move that will destroy the world. Moreover, they were positioned at the outermost edge, so they felt the power and warmth of this move most deeply. Boom. 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 Those bursts were like the coming of the sun, so hot that even the air burned, turning into billowing heat waves that mercilessly submerged them. Even the armor color attached to the body surface can no longer stop the invasion of such high temperature. They could clearly feel that the water in their bodies was evaporating rapidly, and their internal organs and other organs were also gradually shrinking. Even if you try your best to control it, you can't stop the loss of energy. Everyone in the 5 elders' marine army had sweat on their foreheads and all over their bodies. Being in such purgatory is not easy, but after feeling the suffocation of death, cold sweat breaks out from head to toe from the inside out. Must rush out. Fortunately, they were still calm and did not lose their minds. He knew that he should not be impulsive. If he wanted to get out of the current crisis, he had to join forces with the 9 members of the Knights. There is no chance based on their strength alone. The 5 elders and others quickly looked at the 9 members of the Knights with anxious eyes. At this moment, the tremors deep in the hearts of the Holy 9 Figaland Garen were no worse than theirs. The perception of sight, color far surpassed that of the 5 elders and others, giving them even more suffocating chills and panic. How could it be possible? So strong. The feeling Yulo's move gave them, horrible. It is definitely not something they can bear now. The Holy 9 Figaland Garen had no fighting spirit in their eyes, only endless horror. They couldn't even think of resisting, and now they only had one thought in their mind. Rush out. Try your best to get out. Only in this way can there be a chance of survival. Otherwise, they will all be burned to ashes, and no scum will be left. Concentrate and rush out with all your strength. Saint Figaland Galen took a deep breath and gave the order. But the tremor when the words came out could not be concealed. And his tone was impatient and urgent. As his frightened eyes stared somewhere, the other 8 people in the 5 elders also looked at him. That was their chosen breakthrough point, but at the same time. Yulo, 10 miles away, whispered to himself, "That's too late." Due to the obstruction of the connected pillars of fire, Figaland Garen and the others did not hear. But as Yulo's words fell to the ground, the 18 green fire pillars moved. Carrying the temperature of burning the sky and boiling the earth, it gathers towards the middle. Violent heat wave fluctuations began to concentrate. The burned twisted space was like the bloody mouth of some unknown beast, swallowing Figaland Garen and the 5 elders. The sudden situation frightened Figaland Garen Shang into yelling, "Get out! Quick! Be the first to charge regardless of the situation." The other 8 members of the Knights and the 5 elders followed without hesitation. All of them exploded with all their power, including the Sword of Chi and Blood, Conqueror's Haki, Sword Chi and other abilities, all released without leaving any remaining hands. Boom. Stab away the billowing heat wave, concentrate the power on one point, and charge towards the 2 cyan fire Hashirama, the invisible energy connected together. I want to break out of there. Everyone took action at the same time without sparing any effort, and the power created was indeed quite impressive. Various powerful energies intertwined and merged into a huge sword, wrapping Saint Figaland, Garen and everyone else in it, and broke through the formation of 18 blue pillars of fire. However, this move was specially prepared by Yulo for them to end this battle. How could Figaland Garen and the 5 elders be allowed to escape like this? What's more, Yulo has already said it's too late, which means it's really too late, and it's not just talk. The 18 cyan fire pillars that were quickly gathering in the middle seemed to have intelligence. They sensed that their target wanted to escape, and immediately began to boil violently. The temperature was so terrifying that it seemed to have reached the critical point of explosion. The speed at which the 18 cyan fire pillars gathered suddenly accelerated, bringing with them violent and blazing high temperatures and energy fluctuations. It was like the lava erupting from 18 volcanoes, flooding Figaland Garen Saint, 5 elders and others. Boom. 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 The terrifying heat wave swallowed them up like a tsunami. 18 green fire pillars gathered together in an instant. Figaland Galen Saint, 5 elders and others were close to the edge, but they still did not change the fate of being mercilessly swallowed up. It's over. At this moment, everyone was extremely frightened and felt endless despair. At the moment when they were engulfed in a monstrous blue sea of fire, Figaland Garen and the 5 elders not only felt the incomparable power, but they were rushing in from all directions. It was like the weight of mountains one after another was exerted on their shoulders, and the unrivaled terrifying force rushed forward, directly killing Figaland Garen, Shang and others. Like a small boat drifting in a tsunami, they were swatted back and forth, looking helpless and embarrassed. Their power was purely like ants shaking the sky. Hateful. Ah. Puff 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 puff. The crushing power of the giant mountain kept bombarding Figaland Garen, Shang, 5 elders and others. He slapped them back and forth, their bodies were no longer under control, and the blood that surged up to their throats couldn't stop spurting out. However, in the sea of blazing blue fire, the blood that had just been sprayed out was evaporated by the high temperature and turned into blood-red steam almost instantly. Even though there were a large number of them, they still seemed insignificant and as small as dust in the terrifying sea of fire formed by the 18 cyan fire pillars that shot straight into the sky and were all hundreds of meters in diameter. However, this was not the scariest thing. What frightened them the most was that the green fire had risen several times in temperature, and its burning momentum was simply unstoppable. It has become so powerful that even top-notch armed defenses cannot stop it. Their situation is precarious. They could at least hold on for a while, but under the huge bombardment, they were all injured, their breathing was unstable, and their physical strength was quickly lost. This directly caused their armor to be burned through by the green fire, causing their skin and body to come into contact with the violently burning green fire. At this moment, the body of Saint Figaland Garen, the 5 elders, came into contact with the green fire, and was instantly attacked by the terrifying high-temperature energy, and all the ashes it turned into were evaporated. It was so fast that the naked eye could not see the scene of being burned to ashes by green fire, and a certain part of their bodies had disappeared. What is even more terrifying is not them, but the weakest field marshal, the army admiral and the 18 CP0 commanders. The green fire directly burned through the armor, and the whole person was turned into ashes. He didn't even have time to scream, and was annihilated under the green fire. This scene happened next to Figaland Garen Saint, 5 elders and Marine, who witnessed the terrifying power of green fire with their own eyes. It's over. It's really over this time. Even Sengoku Garp and others were extremely desperate, and even some among the 5 elders couldn't help but cry out in pain. It was obvious that he no longer had confidence in whether he could withstand it. At the critical moment, Kong, as Marine Marshal, endured the misery of half his body being burned into nothingness. Sengoku, Garp and Zephyr shouted angrily at Sengoku, who had been promoted by him and valued him very much. Cheer up, old man. As long as you are not dead, you must never give up. This is a life or death moment. His words were deafening, almost hysterical, showing his years of accomplishments as a Marine Marshal. Even compared to someone in the 5 elders, his determination to resist to the death is a bit stronger. However, Kong's scolding made Sengoku, Garp, Zephyr and the 3 of them reluctantly cheer up. But in the terrifying green fire heatwave, which was as vast as the ocean, it was quickly swallowed up without causing any waves. The 9 Knights of God, headed by Saint Figaland Garen, felt deeply powerless. They really couldn't figure out why Yulo, a young man with no background, could be so terrifyingly powerful. And it's still unclear whether this is Yulo's full strength. According to their intuition, obviously not. But if this is the case, doesn't it mean that Yulo's strength may be stronger than that of the adult they are loyal to? They dare not think deeply, it is like a bottomless pit. The deeper they want to sink, the more afraid they will become, and the easier it will be to lose their mind and turn into a monster with a body possessed by fear. At this moment, the fiercely burning green fire seemed to have reached a certain critical point. The high-temperature energy contained in it is becoming more and more violent, and there is even a vague tendency to explode. Other parts of the body of the Holy 9 Figaland Garen also began to turn into ashes and dissipate. Even with the blessing of the secret technique of chi and blood burning, they all possess resilience and vitality far beyond their normal state. Even if he was seriously injured by Yulo's knife before, he can still recover as before. But now it is of no avail. The blessing of burning energy and blood seems to have encountered a natural enemy. When they wanted to restore the parts that had been burned into nothingness, the high-temperature energy of the green fire suppressed the power of chi and blood. Not far away, the situation for Kong, Garp Sengoku and others was even more tragic. Basically, most of the body is gone, and only one breath is left to hold on until now. We can't continue like this, otherwise they will definitely die. Fight. Figaland Galen Saint gritted his teeth, a look of determination flashed in his eyes. Yulo, damn it. Laozi won't let you succeed. Accompanied by his voice of reluctance. Figaland Galen Saint's body was filled with an unprecedented rich vitality. But it disappeared in an instant. Although it came and went quickly, the knights and the 5 elders were still very sensitive to it. Wait. Saint Garen. You want, as the world government, apart from I am, they are the most powerful and powerful beings both openly and secretly. Naturally, he is very familiar with this special energy fluctuation. This is forbidden technique. Once used, it is a direct sacrifice of 30 years of life, and the cost is equivalent to destroying one's own life. It's no different than committing suicide, although it can elevate the strength to an unimaginable height in a short period of time. But after using it, all the strength was lost and the oil was exhausted. By then, death is not far away. They all looked at Saint Figaland Garen in horror. Boom. With a burst of explosion, Figaland Galen Saint's momentum suddenly surged. The 30 years of life that were sacrificed turned into vitality and energy that continuously replenished and enhanced his momentum and strength. After a moment of paleness, his hair was dyed red by the blood that overflowed from his body. His eyes and eyebrows also turned scarlet. Bloody lines spread all over the body like cracks on the surface of the body that are about to be exploded by powerful energy. The whole figure looked like a killing god emerging from the sea of blood, and the scarlet blood mist surrounding him could block even the green fire. In the blood-red eyes of Saint Figaland Garen, there was no trace of regret for wasting 30 years of life. At this moment, he only felt that the pressure was doubled, and there was a steady stream of strength emerging. Not to mention neutralizing Yulo's attack that was like a giant mountain colliding, but at least he was able to resist the mountain. What inspired him even more and shocked the 5 elders and the other 8 members of the knights was that with the blessing of extremely vital energy and blood. On the mutilated body of Saint Figaland Garen, the long-lost parts actually grew again, breaking through the suppression of the high-temperature energy of the green fire. At this moment, Saint Figaland Garen not only recovered as before, but also gained unprecedented terrifying strength due to the increase of 30 years of life burning. Although it is short-lived, it is extremely brilliant. At least I no longer have to wait for death like before. Figaland Galen Saint is as powerful as a dragon, soaring to the sky. It's just that under the suppression of the increasingly violent green fire high-temperature energy, it still looks a bit unsightly. At least he couldn't rush out, nor could he block this move, he could only protect himself. But if this is the case, in the opinion of Figaland Garen Shang, it is still far from enough. Although he didn't have to wait passively for death, he barely had the strength to resist, but after all, he was only one person. It is unrealistic for him to resolve the crisis alone. Because the strength of Figaland Jialan Sheng and his abilities in various aspects have been greatly enhanced, his perception and appearance have also undergone qualitative changes. He could clearly feel the changes in the energy fluctuations of Chingo. It is rapidly compressing and condensing from a large-scale combustion state to a small-scale one. Awesome. This is a versatile killing move. Whether it is the temperature of the flame or the explosion after compression, the power is far greater than before. It was definitely not something that the 5 elders, the other 8 members of the knights, and his burning life could handle. So the only hope is that the 5 elders and the other 8 members of the order are like him. Cast life burn. 30 years of life are exchanged for life. But at this moment, the 5 elders, as well as the other 8 members of the Knights of God, after seeing the determination of Saint Figaland Garen. His expressions ranged from extremely horrified to accepting reality, but his eyes were filled with hesitation. From the reaction just now, it is easy to see that they feel that Figaland Galen Saint is impulsive and reckless. Even if it's a matter of life and death, there's no need to be so anxious and make such a big sacrifice, right? What is the difference between this and cutting off one's own way of survival in advance? Things haven't reached the point where death is certain, right? What's more, even if it's really to the point of certain death, why bother using life burn to pay such a high price? Anyway, whether you use life burning or not, it's a death. It's better not to use it, in case that adult wants to save them. There is still value if life burning is not used, but if life burning is used, it has no value. Even if that adult wanted to save them, he would probably have no choice but not to save them. These thoughts flashed through the minds of the 5 elders and the other 8 members of the knights in a flash of lightning. Although they are absolutely loyal to that adult, they are really powerless now. Facing the terrifying Yulo, they are really helpless. There is no way to think of any way to shake the opponent. Saint Figaland Garen's eyes swept over at this moment, wanting to urge them all to use life burn immediately. But after seeing the expressions of the 5 elders and 8 companions, his face suddenly turned gloomy, so ugly that there was almost murderous intent in his eyes. He immediately shouted angrily, "What are you still hesitating about? Don't think Lousy doesn't know what you are thinking. But never forget your identity and responsibilities." The deafening angry questioning sound was accompanied by the conquerors burst out by Figaland Garen Saint, who violently attacked the 5 elders and 8 other members of the knights. It was like a slap on the head. The 5 elders and the other 8 members of the knights were all shocked and came back to their senses from the thought that was instinctive but should not have occurred. A look of extreme panic flashed through his eyes at the same time. Even though he was in the sea of heat and fire, he still broke out in cold sweat instantly. If that adult knew what they had just thought, they would definitely die. The 5 elders and the other 8 members of the order have no doubt about this. They have seen countless times how ruthless and even cold-blooded the man who has existed for more than 800 years is. What's more, their ideas are unrealistic. If that adult really wanted to save them, he would have interrupted Saint Figaland Garen and appeared to save them when he was burning for 30 years. But the reality is not. That means that the adult has his own arrangements. They can only rely on themselves at the moment. What are you still doing? That's too late. Quick. At this time, Saint Figaland Garen's roar came again, and his eyes were so anxious that they almost burst into flames. He had already sensed with his sense of sight that the explosion of this monstrous blue sea of fire was going to happen at this moment. Hurry up. The 5 elders and the other 8 members of the knights were in high spirits. They also sensed some signs from what they saw and heard. He quickly stopped hesitating and gritted his teeth to use life burn. The strong vitality suddenly rises and disappears. The hair of the 5 elders and the 8 knights turned white for an instant, and then dyed blood red. Unparalleled momentum bloomed and soared into the sky from them. The blue sea of fire was separated, and the suppression of high-temperature energy was broken. The body parts of the 5 elders and the 8 knights that were burned into nothingness quickly regenerated and returned to their original state. How the crack-like bloody lines spread all over his body, turning into the same as Saint Figaland Garen, like a god of death who walked out of a mountain of corpses and a sea of blood. That is at this moment. Boom! The green fire completely boiled. The terrifying high-temperature energy went wild, and a shocking explosion began. The expressions of Figaland Galen Sheng and others changed drastically, and they instantly felt the overwhelming pressure. Even the strong energy and blood that had just been separated from Chingo was now on the verge of being suppressed again. Rush out. 14 people including Figaland St. Garen disappeared instantly. He burst out and rushed towards the original breach as fast as he could. The energy and blood of the 14 people were all integrated with various energies, forming a sharp sword that pierced through everything. Stab. Actually, a vacuum zone was torn open in the exploding green fire. The half-dead Kong, Admiral Quincy, and Sengoku Garp Zephyr took a deep breath and moved towards the breach with all their might. It's just that their strength is not strong, and without the blessing of the secret technique and forbidden technique, most of their bodies have been burned into nothingness, and they can't catch up with Figaland Garen Saint and the others at speed. Is it over? The eyes of the 3 Sengokus were full of despair. With their speed, it was too late. It seemed that they were doomed this time. Both Kong and Quincy also had a hint of far-fetched bitterness on their lips. Boom. A devastating explosion shook the world. Coupled with the violently boiling high-temperature green fire, it rushed in all directions like an overwhelming force. The extremely scorching high temperature burned and distorted the space wherever it passed. And then, there was a bang. Figaland Garen Saint and others used the sharp swords formed by the fusion to break through the formation formed by the green fire. Come out. Everyone was overjoyed, but he didn't relax at all and continued to escape without slowing down. Although they broke out of the formation, the power of the explosion was terrifying, so it was best to stay away as soon as possible. As for Kong, Quincy and others have long been forgotten. Call out. Violent high-temperature energy exploded into the clouds. The Knights of God and the 5 elders were connected, turning into a bloody rainbow and escaping into the distance. The direction is exactly on the other side of where Yulo is. Blessed by the heavy price of burning 30 years of vitality. Their speed increased to an incredible level, and the qualitative change in their sight and color allowed them to sense Yulo's existence. However, Yulo's unfathomable strength, like a god descending to earth, brought an unprecedented and indelible mark of fear to their hearts. Figaland Garen Sheng, 5 elders and others had no intention of fighting anymore and chose to flee immediately when they escaped. Even though they are stronger now, they still feel scared when facing Yulo and don't think they can defeat Yulo at all. In an instant, they had escaped 100 miles away, and the distance between them and Yulo had increased to 200 miles. But he still didn't dare to relax, and continued to speed up and escape, opening a wider distance. Yulo was naturally aware of all this. To be honest, this method of burning life shocked him a little. This should be a method used in the fantasy world, right? Is it also available in One Piece world? But then I think about it, it's not surprising, God knows what else world government has. Yulo glanced at the Marines who were on the verge of death. In their current state, they are basically certain to die. Even if they survive the disaster, there is no threat, after all, their background is too shallow. Yulo's goal was never them. Withdrawing his gaze, Yulo took a step forward. Chase the Knights of God and the 5 elders and others. And in the bursting high-temperature energy cloud, Kong and Quincy, who had already had a death wish, now had a glimmer of hope and chose to risk their lives. Seeing the gap opened by the 5 elders and others, Kong and Quincy's eyes flashed with determination. Facing the increasingly intense high-temperature energy that was eroding their bodies, the 2 of them were not afraid and removed all the remaining energy. He no longer resists, but turns into strength to supplement his remaining body. Sengoku, Garp, and Zephyr were unable to react. Grab them hard. The speed immediately increased, regardless of the erosion of high-temperature energy, and the 3 Sengoku rushed towards the gap. Commander Kong? Senior Quincy. The 3 of them were shocked in a hurry and immediately understood Kong and Quincy's intentions. This means sacrificing oneself for the survival of the 3 of them. At this moment, the Sengoku trio had no other ideas. The only thought was to struggle, not wanting Kong and Quincy to do this. But Kong and Quincy were already possessed by the will to die deep in their hearts, and their eyes and faces were full of farewell. They have become determined and have given up on it. Accelerate like crazy, speed up and speed up again. Squeezing the energy from the remaining body, the Sengoku trio were severely imprisoned. It would be useless to let them struggle. Boom. As Kong and Quincy sprinted desperately, they finally approached the gap. But their unprotected bodies were already exhausted. Like a candle in the wind and rain, it may be extinguished later. The 3 Sengoku knew that they could not change everything, and their struggling thoughts and bodies began to become weak. The whole person was devastated and kept murmuring in a sad voice. Don't. No. They can no longer think. Only one thought in my mind was magnified infinitely. Why aren't they the ones doing all this? Kong and Quincy are their seniors, much better than them in every aspect. They should be the ones doing this. Why didn't they react first? They hate it. Why, at this time, the gap was right in front of us. Kong and Quincy were also on the verge of death, their bodies below the heart already turning into nothingness. It all depends on one breath. The 2 used their last bit of strength, and the remaining energy hit the 3 Sengokus, sending them flying towards the gap. When the mind is lost, Sengoku Garp Zephyr's eyes blurred and he felt a powerful blow. The next moment, when they came back to their senses and their vision returned, Kong and Quincy were seen running backwards away from them. Sengoku Garp Zephyr quickly realized that it was not Kong and Quincy who were retreating, but that they were moving quickly towards the rear. It has even broken out of the energy cloud, because they saw the gap appearing in front of them, and getting further and further away from their sight. Sengoku, Garp, Zephyr, Kong and Quincy shouted. Although the voice was loud, it could be heard that it was extremely weak. But they are still trying their best to send out the last shouts and instructions in their lives. Let me live. Remember, only Yulo is still here, never meddle in his business. Stay alive. Survival is the expectation for the 3 Sengoku. Ignoring Yulo's affairs was an exhortation or even warning to the 3 Sengokus. Because Kong and Quincy know that as long as they don't become enemies with Yulo, nothing will happen. Burndy World, Beloric Redfield and more, those neutral strong men have not been targeted by Yulo or even Rock's pirates so far, which is the best proof. As for the Sengoku trio, it's up to them to decide whether they will listen or not. They've done everything they can. The words of Kong and Quincy fell on the ears of the 3 Sengokus. It is enlightening, and goes straight into the soul. Then, without waiting for their response, The incomplete parts of Kong and Quincy were burned into nothingness by the high-temperature energy. Disappeared from their sight, completely fallen. The three Sengoku who witnessed it with their own eyes helplessly watched as their seniors, Kong and Quincy, completely perished in order to save themselves. Unable to control his emotions, he fainted due to the stimulation of his injuries. Boom, being carried away by the roaring wind that swept in all directions. Although Yulo is far away from here, he knows these very well. The deaths of Kong and Quincy did not cause any emotional fluctuations in his heart. At the moment when I became his enemy, I should have expected this outcome, and it was destined to be this outcome. On the contrary, he couldn't help but admire them for sacrificing themselves to save the three Sengokus. Although there is no consensus among different Taoists, this kind of spirit is still rare. At least the impression on Yulo was much deeper than that of 5 elders, knights of God and others. As for the Sengoku trio, he never paid attention to them. As the saying goes, things like ants pose no threat and can be destroyed with a snap of a finger. As long as he stopped jumping around in front of him, he didn't bother to care about the other person's life or death. Let him pursue and kill him completely with a last-ditch hit. Excuse me. Products like Sengoku Garp Zephyr are not eligible yet.